This show was recorded live on Monday, April 14th, 2014 at 12 p.m. Pacific Time. Tune in, join the live chat, and call in during the show by going to adamversustheman.com/live. Wow, Adam versus the man! Once again, tax day is upon us. And for once, it is met with good news. That's right, we hear today from the Associated Press, chances of getting audited by IRS lowest in years. That's right, and this is such an important, informative piece of journalism right here. For once, we get from the mainstream media something of real, practical resistance effort. Although I think they might be expecting you to read this as, we need to do something about how the IRS functions. We need to restore its importance and make sure that it's fully funded. Just like Obama wants the defense force, domestic defense force, as well funded as the military, right? As millions of Americans race to meet Tuesday's tax deadline, their chances of getting audited are lower than they have been in years. Budget cuts and the new responsibilities are straining the Internal Revenue Service's ability to police tax returns. This year, the IRS will have fewer agents auditing returns than at any time since at least the 1980s. Taxpayer services are suffering too, with millions of phone calls to the IRS going unanswered. And now, here they mean something else than when they put Internal Revenue Service in the title. Yeah, that's actually serving the sponsors and special interests behind government. It has nothing to do with serving. But no, here, taxpayer services, they mean like actually, telling you how you're going to get stolen from, how much you can buy them off to prevent them from stealing from you, things like that. IRS Commissioner John Koskinen said recently, quote, "We keep going after the people who look like the worst of the bad guys, but there are going to be some people that we should catch, either in terms of collecting the revenue from them or prosecuting them that we're not going to catch." And again, you just have to translate this statist language. Okay, we're going after the people who look like the worst of the bad guys. When he says worst of the bad guys, he means people who are getting away with not having shit stolen from them. Yeah, imagine that. So some people that we should catch, as in there are some people that we should be able to rob. There are some people that we should be able to rip off, but we're not going to be able to. We just don't have the budget because we have to give this money to government. Now, it gets better, and we're gonna get into a little bit of the internal conflict IRS Commissioner John Koskinen might be experiencing. Better technology is helping to offset some budget cuts. If you report making $40,000 in wages and your employer tells the IRS you made $50,000, the agency's computers will probably catch that. The same is true for investment income and many common deductions that are reported to the IRS by financial institutions. Now, here's where this is kind of masked in statist language. Here we get some really good practical advice. But if you operate a business that deals in cash with income or expenses that are not independently reported to the IRS, your chances of getting caught are lower than they have been in years. Okay, so again, some translation required. So if you don't conduct your business in a registered manner, if you don't tell the government all about your business, if you don't make sure they know exactly how much you are making so that they can go, well, this guy's got some money piling up, let's go steal a piece of it, you are less likely to have that money stolen. Isn't that amazing? And now it's like it's so obvious in black and white. Last year, the IRS audited less than 1% of all returns from individuals, the lowest rate since 2005. This year, Koskinen said, the numbers will go down. He was confirmed as the IRS commissioner in December, took over an agency under siege on several fronts. Yeah, I would be kind of disappointed in America if we had this massive federal agency whose sole mission was to steal from everyone possible and there wasn't some pushback. Last year, the IRS acknowledged agents improperly singled out conservative groups for extra scrutiny when they applied for tax-exempt status from 2010 to 2012. This revelation has led to 5 ongoing investigations, including 3 by congressional committees and outraged lawmakers who control the agency's budget. Now remember, the U.S. House is controlled by Republicans, supposedly for lower taxes, for freedom, although their concept of freedom, it's a little missing something. But if they could just be exposed for this false outrage, like just just to put it in context, we've said this before here, when the Republicans are getting angry at the IRS for singling out conservative groups, and what they mean by that is not letting them not be stolen from. Like, hey, these are conservative groups. They have a right to not be stolen from. What they're also saying is, you as an individual American do not have such a right to not be stolen from. The IRS also is implementing large parts of President Barack Obama's health law, including enforcing the mandate that most people get health insurance. Republicans in Congress abhor the law, putting another bullseye on the agency's back. See, this is one of the things where this presumption, this loose language, oh, the Republicans on Capitol Hill hate Obamacare. I don't think they really do. I think they love it. I think it gives them something to rail against that they're never going to defeat. It gives them a perfect ongoing propaganda racket. Well, and if anything, this is why we'll probably have Democrat presidents until the end of the federal government entirely. Because now the Republicans, as the loyal opposition, would rather maintain their jobs as that. And Obamacare is the perfect excuse. Oh, we have to repeal Obamacare. I mean, have you seen this? Obamacare has been around for years now, at least in law. And Republicans, oh yes, we're gonna repeal and replace Obamacare. Well, you've got control of the House. We're people totally behind this. Obamacare is extremely unpopular, and yet no results. Again, banging your head against the wall, expecting different results, doing the same thing over and over again, turning to Republicans for smaller government sounds like insanity to me. Obama has proposed a 10% increase for next year for the agency's budget. And this is just the IRS budget has declined from 12.1 billion in 2010 to 11.3 billion in 2014. And you think, oh, that's a great thing. And if anything, yes, this is good news, and it provides more opportunity for those of us who don't want to get stolen from to avoid this massive government theft. Koskinen said he suspects some people think that if they cut funds to the IRS, the agency won't be able to implement the health law. They're wrong. The IRS is legally obligated to enforce the health law. That means budget savings will have to be found elsewhere. Great! So they're going around enforcing this unenforceable Obamacare, and they're diverting resources to that. Like, the snake is eating its own tail here. I love seeing the racket of government getting into such major conflicts that just radically reduce the efficiency of the racket for ripping people off. And now we see in the way that the IRS relates to the American people. So where will these budgets savings be found? Perhaps in the millions of dollars they've spent on shotguns and other law enforcement actions. Yes, the IRS has SWAT teams and other tactical groups that go in and raid businesses. I mean, heaven forbid they would have to cut that. Koskinen said he can cut spending in 3 areas: enforcement, taxpayer services, and technology. Technology upgrades can only be put off for so long, so enforcement and taxpayer services are suffering. Oh no, enforcement is suffering. We can't get away with ripping off enough people. Last year, only 61% of taxpayers calling the IRS for help got it. Who calls the IRS for help? This year, Koskinen said he expects the numbers to be similar. To help free up operators, callers with complicated tax questions are directed to the agency's website. Quote from Koskinen again, "The problem with complicated questions is they take longer. Your chances of getting audited vary greatly based on your income. The more you make, the more likely you are to get a letter from the IRS." And there's, again, some translation required here. The more you make on paper, the more you make of which there is a record that the IRS can see. Only 0.9% of people making less than $200,000 were audited last year. That's the lowest rate since the IRS began publishing the statistic in 2006. By contrast, 10.9% of people making $1 million or more were audited. That's the lowest rate since 2010. So if you're making so much money that you're a very productive tax cow, you can be ripped off to a high degree. They're gonna scrutinize you more, and you have, then this is why if you're in that income range, it's a lot harder to hide that income. But lots of people are certainly capable of living very happy, comfortable lives with most of their economic transactions largely off the record. Only 0.6% of business returns were audited, but the rate varied greatly depending on the size of the business. About 16% of corporations with more than $10 million in assets were audited. Most people don't have much of an opportunity to cheat on their taxes, said Elizabeth Maresca, a former IRS lawyer who now teaches law at Fordham University, and she just so happens to be completely detached from reality. Holy crap. Every single barter transaction you engage in, technically, according to IRS regulations, is supposed to be reported as part of your tax returns. I would put money, literally, every single American who is not in a coma and has not been in a coma for the last year is cheating on their taxes, is conducting some economic transaction somewhere that the government can't track. Are you really surprised by this? But no, if you are a former IRS lawyer, it's probably clear already that you're completely detached from reality. So here are the weak spots, though. Your employer probably reports your wages to the IRS. Your bank reports interest income. Your broker reports investment income, and your lender reports the amount of interest you paid on your mortgage. So now more and more people are escaping this because they know to be in these controlled parts of the economy means being ripped off. It's not that hard to check out, or at least to separate yourself from this part of the racket. As Maresca said, anybody who's an employee who gets paid by an employer has a limited ability to take risks on their tax returns. I think people who own their business or are self-employed have a much greater opportunity to cheat, and I think the IRS knows that too. Sounds like kind of an instruction manual brewing, right? Oh, who is it? Who is it again, Professor? That is most capable of cheating on their taxes? People who do what? If you own your own, you deal in cash and barter, and those people. Those are the ones that aren't paying taxes, who aren't being ripped off, who aren't paying into the criminality of the United States federal government. Isn't that nice? One flag for the IRS is when your deductions or expenses don't match your income, said Joseph Perry, the partner in charge of tax and business services at Markham LLP, an accounting firm. For example, if you deduct $70,000 in real estate taxes and mortgage interest, but only report $100,000 in income, that would at least beg the question: how are you living? So why do people cheat on their taxes? And of course, by cheat we mean evade, theft. Again, you have to translate this here. Maybe they don't like being stolen from. Maybe they don't support the wars. Maybe they don't support the police state. Maybe they don't like their money being used to buy guns to be pointed at their own heads in order to control their behavior. Koskinen said the IRS could scrutinize more returns and collect billions more in revenue with more resources. The president's budget proposal says the IRS would collect an additional $6 for every $1 increase in the agency's enforcement budget. And I can just hear the debate now. Well, look, all we have to do is spend $1. And we get $6 back. Isn't that a great deal? Shouldn't we be investing in this? Sounds like a great investment. Does it sound a little too good to be true? Maybe because it's based on theft. Maybe because you're just stealing the money. Maybe, hey, if we fund the mafia for $1 million, maybe they can find a way to steal us $6 million. Sounds like a great deal, right? Okay. Koskinen said he makes that argument all the time, but for some reason it's not playing well in Congress. Now, this is where we get to the real problem in Koskinen's head. The real reason you can tell, like either he is a wonderful propaganda tool, and I'll bet it's that, or he's an extremely useful idiot. Koskinen said, quote, "I say that, and everybody shrugs and goes on about their business. I have not figured out either philosophically or psychologically why no one seems to care whether we collect the revenue or not. Well, when most of every dollar spent on Capitol Hill is borrowed, they have no incentive. They don't need to take the money in the form of taxes. When they can print money through the Federal Reserve or have the Fed print it and borrow it for government, whatever way you want to describe that process, when you can create money out of thin air in a way that just rips off the poor, which is really the point of government. Think about it for a second. Government exists to serve the superclass, the powerful, the elites, to steal from the poor to give to the super rich. Why would they give? Why would this tax system exist this way? What is the purpose of a progressive tax system? If government wants you to believe, oh no, we're here looking out for the little guy. Right. Think about how this actually works in practice. The entire concept of a progressive income tax is a total sham. Every single government on earth exists for this purpose and this purpose alone. If the superclass were not getting paid off by their government or by governments, those governments would cease to exist. As long as the people allow those concentrations of wealth and power to exist, it should be no surprise that the guns pointed in society to steal, to control, to dominate, to exploit are done on behalf of the superclass. The concept of a progressive income tax. Sounds great. Sounds progressive. Even if you're not a liberal, oh yes, it's progressive. Well, it means it gets more and more the higher income. So the higher your income, the more you get taxed. Oh, we're here to steal from the rich to give to the poor. We're just like Robin Hood. Yeah. Well, no, that's where it kind of breaks down. And you would think, well, at least maybe they're stealing from the productive middle class. They're stealing from everybody, or they're stealing from just the legitimately productive tax cows. And they're using some of that to help the poor. And yes, unfortunately, from corruption, some of it goes to the super rich. But no, that's not the case, because they can only squeeze so much out of the middle class. That's what the IRS represents. That's what they're doing. When they print money, when the middle class stands up and says, no, we're not going to be taxed, and the super class says, well, screw you, what do? They print more money. They create more money. Who does that rip off? The poor and working class and those on fixed incomes the most. And those are the people that are affected by these policies. So Mr. Koskinen either can't figure this out, or he's a very effective propaganda tool making people think that government exists to help the poor when nothing could be further from the truth. Happy Tax Day, America. And today is Monday, April 14, 2014. You're listening to the Adam versus the Man podcast. Thank you so much for joining us today. And it is because it is April 14th and it is a Monday. That means, anybody? Bueller? 420 is on Sunday. That's right. It's Weed Week here at Adam versus the Man, our second week back on the air. And we've got some amazing guests lined up. Today, though, before we jump into the Weed Week seriousness, we have to get some stuff out of the way, a little housekeeping. We're going to have Pete Santilli on, again, live from the Bundy Ranch, Nevada. Really excited to get a recap of what went on there this weekend. And it looks like it was a major victory, a pushback. We're very excited to report that the feds have backed off, although obviously this is not the end of the issue. This is not the end of the fight. It is not the complete conversation. There are a lot of mysterious things going on here in terms of oil contracts and solar plants and desert tortoises. No, nobody really cares about the tortoises anymore, do they? That's like totally out the window. No one's talking about the turtles? Wait, tortoises? Someone's going to write in and blame me for not being PC enough. Anyway, we're going to get some on-the-ground, or we're going to get a final on-the-ground report from Pete, and then tomorrow we'll do a full recap of everything that happened at the Bundy Ranch. But coming up later this afternoon, we got N.A. Poe coming on at 1 o'clock, and then tomorrow, New Jersey Weed Man, the one and only, and really, since I was in jail, he's gone through some interesting stuff. And we're going to get him to explain this, but he was like going to jail, 10 days on, 10 days off? Do you remember? Or something like that? And it was so that he was getting like 1 week in a month off so he could get out and give himself his cannabis oil treatment for his bone cancer, and then go back to jail for smoking pot in public. And you're just like, holy fucking shit, really? Yeah, welcome to the American drug war. So we'll get into that with him, get him to explain that story. And then tomorrow we've also got Dustin Kaufman, awesome comedian who did Weediculous, who was there for the joint summit with President Schum at the White House. He might still have some liability from that. I'll let him tell the story about how it was that a police captain came up and put his hands on both of our necks and then bent over to pick up a joint, and the next minute I was being arrested and Dustin was nowhere to be seen. I don't know how that happened, but we'll find out. And then on Wednesday, we've got Jeff Berwick, the dollar vigilante, coming from Mexico, and we've talked to him a lot about what he does helping libertarians expatriate and diversify internationally. But I think we're going to be talking about a little bit about the Mexican drug war and the interaction there with the market here to stay on that theme. And then we've got Jesse Ventura. I've heard he smoked pot once or twice. Jesse Ventura is going to be on Wednesday. Thursday, Barry Cooper of Never Get Busted. Robert Scott Bell, that's right, coming on Thursday as well. And then my good friends Rich Paul, who just escaped some crazy entrapment for marijuana and LSD charges in New Hampshire, and Danny Panzella all the way from Long Island. So it's going to be an awesome week. And then Sunday, this is the important thing for those of you, especially who are here in Los Angeles and know that we just moved here recently and want to come and hang out. We're doing a little 420 celebration at the Santa Monica Pier, keeping this one really simple. You can go to my Facebook page, facebook.com/AdamVersusTheMan.com. Facebook.com/AdamVersusTheMan. And the event was created just before the show, like 5 minutes before we went on air. 420 celebration with Adam Kokesh at the Santa Monica Pier. Please check it out. You can start showing up whenever the hell you like. I'll be there around 3:30 and staying through our moment of censored reflection at 4:20. You can fill in the blank there with whatever you think is going to go down. But we really appreciate everybody who's been supporting the show out here in LA so far, and especially those who have joined the editorial team to help prep stories for the show. We are still looking for people to help with production, especially if you want to join the team as an intern. Please email us, adam@adamversustheman.com. And thank you so much for everybody who's donated to get us back on the air. If you want to sponsor the show, we are looking for sponsors right now. But if you just want to join us and support what we're doing, please check out adamversustheman.com/invest. All right, now we go to some fun news because it's Weed Week. We got to get in a story like this from UPI.com. Pot vending machine to debut. Avon, Colorado. A Colorado company has introduced the first ever marijuana vending machine, which will soon be put to use at a dispensary in Eagle Vale, Colorado. The so-called Zaz machine was produced by Stephen Sheeran's company American Green and was delivered to the Herbal Elements dispensary on Friday. It debuted the machine to the public outside Montana's Smokehouse Barbecue Restaurant in Avon on Friday. Doesn't Colorado sound like heaven all of a sudden? Barbecue joints with marijuana vending machines outside. But again, it's cool to see this in the context of the beginning of the end of the drug war. Now, this is a very high-tech machine. In order to be, I don't know if this is, this is legal. Apparently it is in Colorado under their law. And now that it's, they don't have the same restraints like here in California. They have a California driver's license and a referral from a California doctor, so on and so forth. The machine includes technology that requires users to swipe their driver's license to verify their identity and age. Multiple cameras attached to the machine make sure the person swiping the card is the same person depicted on the card. Pretty cool. Aren't you glad now that we have facial ID technology? Because if it wasn't for that, we couldn't have a pot vending machine. Okay, but then again, if we didn't have government regulation and so on and so forth, you'd be able to just have pot delivered like a burrito. And if it wasn't for the FAA, you'd actually have it delivered by the burrito bomber, which instead of dropping burritos, would literally just drop dime bags out of the sky whenever you press a button on your smartphone and wanted some weed delivered. Yeah, things suck this much more than that because of government. They would swipe their driver's license, at which point multiple cameras would allow us to use some advanced biometrics to make absolutely certain that the person who swiped the card is the owner of that card. If it wasn't for government and you weren't hurting anybody, nobody would give a shit. From Tyler Durden at Zero Hedge, yes, more fallout from Ukraine. U.S. pays half of Gazprom's overdue invoice with $1 billion Ukraine loan guarantee. With Ukraine no longer paying for Russian gas, and with Gazprom making it clear Kiev has to A, first pay the overdue $2+ billion invoice, and then B, prepay some $5 billion in gas until the end of the year, before Europe gets it. It was only a matter of time before the U.S. Treasury stepped in and paid off part or all of their demands. That time is now. When moments ago, Jack Lew announced a $1 billion loan guarantee for Ukraine, very much the same way that the U.S. provided billions in loan guarantees for the now long overthrown Morsi regime in Egypt. And in other news, many more costly and damaging U.S. sanctions are surely headed Russia's way any second now. And you can think about this for a second. If the Russian economy is, subsidized to such an extent by the American government, what does that make the American government? Now, because the actual size of these economies is it's really, really imbalanced. I mean, look, okay, just GDP per capita. U.S. $50,000, Russia $14,000. Gross national income, this is from nationmaster.com. Russia, $253 billion. They are ranked 17th. The United States, ranked first, $19.78 trillion. That's 39 times the size. Now, in America, thanks to the Cold War propaganda and all the fear-mongering, we get this idea that, there were two great superpowers. And just think for a second. I mean, if everything that you were told in government schools was a lie, it's not hard to understand why when you see that this is how it's set up. Oh, yes, If it was, I mean, we have to, it's the nuclear threat, it's the communist threat, it's the Red Scare, it's Vladimir Putin. And now you have to wonder if Putin is in charge and Putin is buying off his people to the point where he's getting, subsidizing, in many ways through welfare and other payoffs and things like that. And it's the American taxpayers that are paying for that. This is like foreign aid. This is like a huge foreign aid package. And it makes you wonder, how has this determined the rest of American-Russian relations since the beginning of the Cold War? If the Russian economy was really that much smaller, or at least if it is today, 1/39th the size. 1/39th. Now, they're going to have to re-engineer all this propaganda to make us afraid of China, and that's what's been going on over the last maybe decade or so. But still, most Americans have this view or vision in their heads, right? That you've got Russia and you've got the United States of America, and they're the bad anti-freedom ones, and the United States, they're the pro-freedom ones, right? No. Russia itself is really, in the bigger scope now, much closer to being just another pawn of the American empire. I mean, you've got Syria, you've got the conflict there. Oh, it's Russia versus the United States. It's a proxy war for the great powers. No, it's not. They want you to think it's that way to justify the trillions of dollars that the United States spends on defense. So this is why they have no problem saying, yeah, we're going to give $1 billion US, and they call it a loan guarantee. Yeah, right, like we're going to collect on this one. Today, the U.S. Secretary Jake Lew announced the signing of a $1 billion loan guarantee agreement for Ukraine. This guarantee, when completed, will complement the government of Ukraine's International Monetary Fund reform program and underscores the United States' commitment to Ukraine. Here's the quote. The Ukrainian people have demonstrated some tremendous courage as they have charted an independent course for their country and demanded a government that truly reflects the will of the people. The United States has been at the forefront of building international support for Ukraine and holding Russia accountable for its violation of Ukrainian sovereignty and destabilizing action that you are now subsidizing. I would like to congratulate Minister Schlappak on the progress he and his team have made in putting in place a comprehensive economic reform program together with the IMF. The United States very much wants to see Ukraine prosper, and we will continue to stand with the Ukrainian people as they move forward to realize their long-held aspirations. I don't even know how we came to this point in America. Well, okay, I have some idea. Where the American people will go, oh, our government wants to stand with the government of another country. Yeah, here, steal some money from us and give it to their government. And we just go, it's America helping Ukraine. And we see these great powers, and it's how we relate to these big abstract ideas like personalities. But no, it's just more of the government racket. And this is insane. The $1 billion loan guarantee is part of a U.S. bilateral assistance package that also includes technical assistance to help Ukraine return to a path of economic recovery. This loan guarantee will bolster the government of Ukraine's ability to provide critical services as it implements reforms while protecting the most vulnerable Ukrainian households from the impact of the necessary economic adjustment, which is to say, assimilation into the American empire. From the New York Observer, NYPD taking all steps to protect Jewish institutions after Kansas shooting. Now, I'm kind of surprised we haven't seen this blow up in the news more. Yeah, there was a shooting. New York Mayor Bill de Blasio announced this evening that NYPD is taking all steps to secure the city's Jewish institutions in the wake of a fatal shooting outside of a Jewish community center and senior living community in Kansas, which reportedly left at least 3 dead on the eve of Passover. Now, yes, horrendous tragedy, 3 people died, and a senseless shooting where you got someone who's obviously insane because as he was being pulled off in the police cruiser, he was yelling Heil Hitler. But for my people in New York, yes, I know there are a lot of my people in New York who are falling for this. And when we talk about the influence of the Israel lobby, or what some people conflate with racism when they talk about the Jews, it's really a very, very small number that are the ones that are ripping everybody off, that are using Judaism, that are using the victimhood of the Holocaust to say, you need to pay us off or take care of us, or whatever other racket there is. But the vast majority of Jews are simply pawns in this as well. And now you have this manifest in New York, Blasio said, de Blasio, the NYPD is taking all steps to ensure the safety and security of Jewish individuals and institutions as Passover is being ushered in. And you think, but Adam, this is great. For once, the government is doing its job protecting people and a persecuted minority group that's, subject to the victimization of all of these horrific things from, hate groups. They're being protected by government. Oh, really? Really? Because in Kansas, they just don't have any government. In Kansas, there's no police anywhere whatsoever. They have no government protection racket at all, and that's what prevented the shooting from happening. No, don't think so. You're turning to a protection racket for protection, and you're never going to get real safety or security if you accept a protection racket whose premise is ripping you off in order to pay for this protection. And if you think that what happens in New York is just like, any different than anywhere else in the country, if there was going to be another shooting of Jews somewhere in New York, some crazy racist hate crime, guess what? It's a good thing you've allowed the government to tax the crap out of you, to spend billions of dollars on the police force so they can show up afterwards and file a report, just like they did in Kansas. We go now to Skype, and we're really excited to be getting Pete Santilli back on the show, who's been on the ground in Clark County, Nevada, talking to Cliven Bundy and what's going on at the Bundy Ranch. Been a very exciting story to cover last week, and really this weekend was a very important one for what was going on with the Bundy Ranch and the family there in terms of pushing back the feds. And it was really just one round in the ongoing saga of what's happening at the Bundy Ranch in Nevada. But the even with all of the confounding influences, with all of the various power players involved, with the BLM, with the oil companies, with Harry Reid, with China, with solar companies, so on and so forth. It is a very exciting example of pushing back against federal government power. It looks like we don't have Pete on the line here, but Sierra, can you check again, see if we can get Pete Santilli up here? So until then, Jeffrey, you want to take us back to shot one? We'll cover some more stories because I want to talk about honey. Can we talk about honey for a while? Jeffrey's like, yeah. I want to talk about health news. This is cool stuff. From naturalnews.com, scientists discover why honey is still the best antibiotic. And I'm excited to bring a very practical story for people because, a lot of times it's, well, government is bad, government is evil, therefore what? Therefore we should be angry and depressed and whatever. No. There is a very important practical benefit to questioning government, and especially the medical authorities, which is exactly what Natural News does, and I really commend them for putting out this story. Conventional antibiotics are overprescribed and overconsumed. They are given out like parade candy, tossed out to anyone waving their hands. 2010 data obtained by the U.S. CDC, Centers for Disease Control, show that a whopping 833 antibiotic prescriptions are handed out on average per every 1,000 people. And I remember this from when I was a kid. I don't know what it was. I don't think I got sick or injured or in whatever more as a kid than as an adult. But it seemed like every time I got sick, my parents would take me, my mom would take me to the doctor, and it's like, oh, here, have some antibiotics. And I never really questioned it. But then it's like, how did I get so many as a child, and then as an adult? I don't think I can even remember the last time I've been prescribed an antibiotic. But this is one of the ways the medical industry takes advantage of people, right? Especially as parents. Oh, this is essential for your child's health, and hence vaccines and all the other rackets associated with pediatrics. Doctors carelessly prescribe antibiotics for viral infections, which is useless since they're only effective for breaking up bacterial infections. To make matters worse, overprescription and overconsumption make future infections harder to fight since antibiotics deplete the good bacteria in the gut. And so that's the personal effect. There's a much larger social effect, though. In this medical travesty, antibiotic-resistant bacteria are rising up, adapting to the singular mode of action that prescription antibiotics lean on. There are 20 resistant strains of bacteria identified by the CDC, thanks to reckless dependency on these prescriptions. So this is something that they're seeing especially in hospitals. And really, I don't mean this at all facetiously, but stay away from hospitals as much as you can, as long as you don't absolutely need some immediate service there that can only be delivered there, because you have these problems. And I don't mean to judge all hospitals universally, but this is pretty much a problem at every major hospital in America, because you cannot operate a hospital and in this environment and be competitive when you're not taking government subsidization when every other hospital in the country is. So it's pretty much every single hospital in America and most in the world are really affected by this because the pharmaceutical industry has so effectively pushed antibiotics. As this disturbing trend continues, scientists are looking for simpler answers. Researchers from the Sal Virginia University in Newport, Rhode Island are rediscovering the reasons why raw honey is still one of the best natural antibiotics around to this day. Wow, no kidding. I mean, you would think, when you see this true about marijuana, for example, like right now is we're in the middle of the end of the drug war. People are going, holy crap, marijuana has all these incredible medical benefits for which instead you could buy a prescription or, spend your money on modern medical care. And why is marijuana illegal? At least one of the major reasons it's stayed illegal is because of the pharmaceutical industry lobbying Congress. So we see the same reason that most people don't know that honey and so many other natural remedies have these simple benefits. Meshwitz said that honey uses a combination of weapons, including polyphenols, hydrogen peroxide, and an osmotic effect. It is practically an ambidextrous fighter using multiple modalities to kill bacteria. So this is, I could go on and on about all of the different ways, but here's the advice from Mike Adams. Honey is so powerful for destroying bacteria that it should be the first mode of treatment when treating a bacterial illness. Doctors should prescribe honey first since it attacks bacteria from multiple angles. Prescribed antibiotics should be the alternative therapy or the last resort. Honey is more powerful because it prevents the formation of antibiotic-resistant bacteria. Conventional antibiotics fail because they only target the essential growth processes of bacteria. This allows bacteria to build up resistance over time, while the user also destroys the good bacteria in their gut. Honey works much differently, breaking down the communication process in the bacteria while dehydrating their structures through osmosis. On top of that, it's filled with antioxidants. And as Meshwitz adds, quote, several studies have demonstrated a correlation between the non-peroxide, antimicrobial, and antioxidant activities of honey and the presence of honey phenolics. Now, my friends here are actually particularly fans of Trader Joe's Manuka honey, and we're not here to endorse this product by any means, but there are certain strains of honey, and obviously if you're getting the pasteurized crap that's mainstream honey, you're losing, I don't know, depending on how you want to measure it, something like 90% of the benefit. One of the other benefits of honey that I've actually experienced in my own life is that when you're getting natural raw honey that is local, and very specifically local raw honey contains from pollen that might make you allergic. It contains some of that, and you're able to digest it in a way that prevents you from experiencing hay fever and other similar symptoms. It's something I've dealt with my entire life. Now, I can't say that this was the be-all, end-all for me, but the takeaway from this is that honey really is just like marijuana, one of those things that has been swept aside for its health benefits. And in fact, I would bet there's been a lot of pressure by the pharmaceutical industry to make sure that it's harder to sell raw honey or unpasteurized or natural honey, and instead you have to have it pasteurized and sanitized to the point where it's biologically useless and it's just essentially syrup, so that it doesn't have that. But now people are rediscovering this, and I would just hope that if you ever have any problems that you think might be addressed by honey, if you go online, as so many people are, being empowered by the internet to direct their own health, then you can at least question the source and look into whether honey has an application for whatever it is that you're dealing with. All right, do we have any word for Mr. Santilli? All right, he's ready to join us. All right, we go now to the Skype. And by the way, we will be taking some Skype calls today if you want to join me. We added the instructions to the website over the weekend. If you're at adamversustheman.com/live right now, you can click on the link where it says here at the top of the page and get some quick instructions on the best way to get through to me during the show. Right now, we are ringing Mr. Santilli, and it says we're still not able to get him, although I can certainly understand that if he is, as it says here on Skype, online on a mobile device, because he's still in the field. He's still out around the ranch in Nevada. Maybe his signal's spotty, but he said he's ready. All right, we're going to keep trying, see if we can get Mr. Santilli on here. So definitely, today we're definitely going to have fun with N.A. Poe coming on as our next guest. All right, it looks like we've got Pete Santilli here on the line. Okay, I was just saying, I do want to take some calls from the audience later today about what's going on at the Bundy Ranch. Ladies and gentlemen, we go now to Pete Santilli, who was live on the scene. We're so grateful that his connection has come through. Pete, welcome to the show.
Hey, Hey, Adam, how are you? This is what we're going to do. I want to do, if you don't mind, a panoramic shot.
Please, please. It's
Can I
really
do a
exciting to see the
panoramic
scene
shot
behind you.
out here? And
Yes.
then I need to get to an area where I can hear better. I got you on my iPad,
Oh,
okay?
excellent. Well, I appreciate
Here we
you.
go. Let me show this.
Excellent, excellent. I appreciate you going to these lengths for journalism. This is really incredible. When we know that the mainstream media was especially late to this story, but a lot of independent media really drove it into the mainstream. We've got a stage, we've got a wonderful crowd here behind you, and it looks like the Bundys finally got that support that you were calling for last week. Well, Pete, while you're doing that, we can hear you all right. Can you describe a little bit about the atmosphere at this point? What are people feeling in wake of this weekend's pushback?
I'm sorry, I could not hear you.
No worries. I appreciate that, and it looks like you're in a vehicle now, and I hope you can hear me better. What is the attitude there? What's the mood like? It seems like you got a lot of people that are just congregating outside. I hope today they're celebrating.
You know, there are today, and it will be a celebration, and that's not just to publicly alleviate our concerns, obviously, for what we know is the inevitable. The government is not going to, they're not going to take this laying down or standing down. So we're not going to alleviate our fears of what we know that they're capable of, and that is to remove the BLM and to bring in the big guns, the DHS. Okay.
Well, now, do we have any specific indication of that, or because we've seen now already today, and I don't know if you've heard this. I'm sure you've heard this on the ground, but the BLM is still pursuing another court order to have the cattle removed. At least that's the latest we got here this morning.
That's correct. But if it doesn't consider, the constitutional implications, their court order is going to be just as meaningless as the previous one. So it's unenforceable. So the BLM. Because they have, I guess, legal jurisdiction to go back in there to the court system and to utilize a corrupt court system to justify coming back in to enforce a court order. It's going to be unenforceable. Who are they going to use? Is the BLM going to come back in here to enforce the court order? I think not, for many different reasons that we're going to discuss. Okay?
Absolutely, no. I think they've spent that shell. But Pete, for our audience who
can you shut the door, dude, on the other side? Thanks. Sorry.
All right, no worries, Pete. Really appreciate you taking the time to do this when you're out on the ground there. But if you would please take a few minutes and give us a recap of exactly what transpired this weekend and what your perspective on that was.
Okay, and that's right. I haven't spoken to you then as to what happened. Maybe you got bits and pieces of it. Let's recap very quickly. Did I tell you about the stage off at the stand with the sheriff? Let me backdate a little bit here.
Yeah, we spoke over the phone about that, and it was very exciting to hear. But more importantly, I think people are wanting to hear exactly the mechanics, because this is where there's still some dispute. We know that the BLM backed down. I think everybody's heard that major headline that they've decided that they're at least pulling back from this operation, and that cattle were released. And it was about 130 of 300 that were stolen. So we don't know how many died. But I think what people really want to hear first is, how did that confrontation develop, and what led them to back down in that moment?
Okay. This is facts. Everything I'm going to give you is factually correct based on my personal firsthand observations.
Excellent.
All right. We were at the stage. The demands were made. We had 2,500 people or so. Demands were made to the sheriff. Everybody cheered. The sheriff did not respond to a demand by Mr. Cliven Bundy to disarm the federal agents. Okay, and to deliver those weapons to the base of the camp's flagpoles. The sheriff turned and basically put his tail between his legs, never showed up again. Mr. Bundy said, if they aren't here in an hour, we're going to tell you what the next step is. That next step was for us to all rise up as a group of individuals and to go down across the freeway, the 15 freeway, to secure the cattle, to have them released and demand that they were being released. So we took the entire camp of 2,000 to 3,000 people, best guesstimation, and we went and shut down the 15 freeway, northbound and southbound side. Okay. Now, there was an overpass, okay, where the entrance to where the cattle were being stored. right at the 15th freeway. There's not an off ramp or anything like that. It was just a matter of, having that overpass, that thoroughfare where the cattle could come through. So people went by horseback in the numbers of, I would say, about 200 on horseback, and the remaining balance of those people out on the freeway. The freeway was shut down, both sides, northbound and southbound, and I'm pleased to inform everybody that Metro PD from Las Vegas and the state troopers from the state of Nevada, I mean, I have to give them credit. Their only role was in traffic control and crowd safety.
Amazing.
That was it.
Yeah.
Oh, not only amazing, I'm going to tell you, I mean, there's nothing that anyone can say other than that it's a good day when these guys are literally cheering you on in a silent way. Because we understand what you're doing. Thank you very much.
And just so people know, as long as we're clear exactly on the same page here, the expectation would be in any other circumstance that the local law enforcement would just kind of fall in line with the feds and do whatever they said to support their operations, correct?
Yeah, we were hoping that wouldn't happen. We had been calling for, even the day prior, I spoke with he was essentially the top person in charge. He was the chief guy, special agent in charge of the entire operation. And I told him, when we come to get the cattle, you're going to have an opportunity to stand down. So we advised them. We told them we were coming, and we're coming peacefully. Now, here's the beautiful part of it. I'm going to try to the best of my ability, try to convey the emotional side of what happened as well. The 100 cowboys on horseback proceeded from the camp off-road to the area where the cattle were. Now, there was a point where they were going down from the camp down to the cattle area, and they were to turn a corner to that underpass, okay? Knowing full well that once they turned the corner, they were going to be met with guns, okay? That we suspected that the other side was going to have guns against us and guns drawn. And these very courageous men and one woman on horseback turned that corner to go meet with tyranny face to face, head to head, to demand that they open up that gate, okay? There was a skirmish line set up, okay? There were people on horseback. There were men, women, there were children. And in fact, who led that skirmish line to the entrance of the gate? There were some media. By the way, I also need to give special credit to some members of the media that were there on the front lines, whereas they should not have been right there at the front lines. Especially mainstream guys should not have been in the middle. They should have been off to the side. But very, very courageous, knowing full well what they were up against, okay? We were literally gun to gun with the militia pre-positioned, protecting the peaceful protesters, okay? The skirmish line was led ultimately to the front gate, and there were women across the front who had volunteered to go to the front of the gate to make our demands. And they knew full well that they could have been shot, and they were advised, to step back. They were given disbursement warnings as well, that force would be used if they did not disperse, and they stood their ground and stood there. Now, we have, by the way, exclusive photos. I'm also pleased to announce that they were just released just before I came on air. My photographer, the person that took the photos that you're going to see at 21stcenturywire.com, was the man at the top of the southbound side of the freeway, where he never should have been able to go to begin with. And he took photos of just about each and every one of the federal agents who were dressed up in army fatigues and were prepared to go to war against the American people. We have that on shocking display at 21stcenturywire.com. That's Patrick Henningson's site. He's a GMN broadcaster, as well as he does our Bunker News Report. So those photos are nowhere else in the entire world. They've been provided to GMN exclusively. And the mainstream media won't be getting those, by the way. Okay? But we show what was at the other side. So when I say the women were up against, what the women were up against, they were up against those war fighters on the other side, those federal government goons dressed up as if they were going to Iraq. Now, I'm going to speed it up a little bit. I'm going to tell you that muzzles were pointed at each other on both sides. Okay. Unfortunately, but true, safeties were off, muzzles were forward, and fingers, unfortunately, were on the triggers.
Yes.
Okay?
Now, just to be clear, even that display of force, if is a violation of firearm safety rules. You never point a weapon at anything. You do not intend to shoot. Never take your weapon off safe until you are ready to fire. Never put your finger on the trigger until you are ready to shoot. And I would hope that even as glorious as this confrontation may have been, that it could have happened with guns at the side and holstered, because to draw them and point them at someone is tantamount to saying, I am about to shoot you. And that is really walking up to the line of tragedy, but clearly crossing the line of a firearm safety.
You're absolutely right. As a matter of fact, that was exactly going to be my point. There was a situation where the federal government that we had met, okay, had weapons pointed at us, okay, in that same fashion. Tactically, by the way, somebody needs to get fired. Tactically, they were in a position to basically be slaughtered. But my point is, in probably the most unsafe environment, where, I mean, every Marine knows you don't take your safety off, put your finger on the trigger without a round going past your muzzle, period.
Right.
I mean, you were going to fire that weapon. Well, Adam, I'm going to tell you, forget about how glorious the description was. It wasn't glorious at all. We were one trigger pull away from a Bundy Ranch massacre. 1,000 rounds within a matter of a minute.
Right, and I think a lot of people were afraid of that, and that it could have gone the wrong way, and that this wasn't a clear-cut case of an organized, peaceful resistance. Although it stayed very, and you could make the case, going to that point of that tactical posture is already threatening. But at least we can say no one was shot, and that's huge. But to think that it went so close,
both sides were guilty. Both sides posturing were absolutely guilty in that confrontation.
And of course, as we all know, very predictably, the government was on a whole other level guilty of initiatory violence in stealing the cattle in the first place and in tasing nonviolent protesters.
That's absolutely correct. All right. Now, let me summarize. We have, and this is to the credit of the militia. Okay. The militia was there to protect the rights of the protesters, and they did so very, 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 very appropriately, with tremendous discipline and tactically superior to the federal government. In fact, it should something have happened, they need to look into what could have panned out, and the federal government would not have won that, unfortunately. Now, that was to the benefit of the American people who were there protesting. The women, there were some children standing by close by. What ended up happening was the standoff came to a head. They would not stand down. There were orders, I'm sure, that came from D.C. Situation Room at that point. They stood down within a matter of, this is about an hour into this, within a matter of moments, okay, they stood down, opened up the gates, and said, we're pulling up stakes and we're going home. The BLM left the property within a matter of minutes, had pulled up and left. Once they were off the property, then the cattle was let loose, all right? And that will be the next part of the story, of course, that we'll talk about, all right? And I'm going to tell you something right now. That court order that the BLM says that they're going to obtain to take the cattle back, based on their conduct and how they treated that cattle, they have no business being in the cattle reclamation process. Those cattle were not only mistreated, they were malnourished. The babies were neglected. It was absolutely horrifying. I have everything on video as to those cattle coming out. But even if they have a court order, we also need to supplement that court order with a mandate that requires that that true cattle ranchers take care of those cattle, not the federal government.
And they're going to have a much more difficult time hiring actual capable ranchers who understand the industry and the business and what it means to be a rancher to do this kind of criminal behavior than the regular federal thugs there. Now, Pete, is there anything else you want to tell us about the narrative in terms of what transpired this weekend?
Okay. You can already see that they're demonizing the militia. I know this personally and firsthand. As a matter of fact, beforehand, I really didn't know. I understood. The term militia, implies that something other than just a stroll in the park and having a good afternoon. But guess what? The militia is so critical to have around all the time. In these instances, especially in the state of our current affairs with the federal government, I believe that the group here, this militia group, is the model that needs to be used to describe how important it is to have a militia behind a peaceful group of constitutional, lawful citizens.
Well, even if I may, even more simply, the lesson to be taken from this is that you don't need an organized militia per se in order to achieve the effects when you have a well-armed citizenry that is capable of coming together and saying that we are going to apply defensive force when we can come together for a righteous cause. And I think that's more like there wasn't a militia that showed up. It was militia men, people describing themselves independently, that showed up and formed this group. Is that correct?
Perfect. As a matter of fact, Pat, I need to just warn you. I have to go to a press conference. It's the main one here. Okay. The culminating the entire weekend.
Is Clive?
And I'll provide.
Is this Clive Bundy speaking?
If you would he's going to be coming up here momentarily.
Are you able to stream that for us as well through Skype?
I need to get on my Ustream, my Ustream as well.
Okay, well then let me just let me ask one last question, Pete, and I very much appreciate you joining us, and we're gonna be coming back to the story tomorrow with a little more in-depth analysis. But I think there's in learning the lessons from this event. I think we all know that there's a bigger fight here, that this is ongoing, that the feds as a whole are not simply backing down from this, but they're backing down from this fight. And if anything, a lot of people were hoping that there were going to be thousands and thousands of people there, but I think it's a great lesson to say that, to show that only a few hundred were able to make this pushback. And there were a lot of other dynamics at play here. There are a lot of things behind the scenes, but I want to get from you, your effect even as a journalist, and the influence of the independent media, and the fact that you have a guy who can go up and take pictures of all these agents. I mean, how many of them drew tasers instead of guns because there were cameras there? And I think we owe it to ourselves as people who care about freedom, who see the glory in pushing back against the feds, to understand what dynamics led it to transpire just the way that it did.
Yeah, this will be the model. I mean, for all those people out there, and I loved your point about the militia, because that's the way that I really want to describe is that we had a well-armed citizenry. I have to go, guys. I have to go right now.
All right,
okay?
Pete, thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate it. Ladies and gentlemen, Pete Santilli, the Pete Santilli Show. Please check him out, and he's been doing some great reporting on the ground from the Bundy Ranch in Nevada. And right now, we're very concerned about how this is playing out in the national conversation, and we're excited to see that there was a truly glorious pushback in this one incident. As hairy as it may have been, there are a lot of important lessons to be learned that are bigger than the Bundy Ranch. We're also going to be having a conversation about property rights and how this gets into the federal government being, exercising illegitimate property claims in Nevada. Well, every government property right or property claim being essentially illegitimate. But we'll also be getting into the exact dynamics of how and why it played out the way that it did, because it could have gone a lot of different ways. It could have been really bad. There's still some fear as to how this may be used to demonize the militia. And as this goes to the national conversation in the wake of the great Bundy Ranch resistance incident, you will now have people saying, well, this is why the militia has to be abolished. This is why you can't use the militia as a justification for people owning firearms, because then the feds can't come in and tell people how to run their lives and manage their land, which is kind of the point. So what this may do is serve as a way of polarizing the conversation and give the Obama administration some ammunition to pull people in their direction and say, look, we have to take away gun rights because otherwise the feds can't exercise this power. And for those people that were on the fence but basically will side with the Fed, it's going to pull them in that direction. But it also has the possibility for everybody else to go, well, geez, we really don't want the feds to be exercising this control. Oh, having an armed militia is a way to prevent such injustices? Sounds like a pretty good idea now, doesn't it? But we're going to turn to a much more fun topic now as we get our friend N.A. Poe, our friend and former cellmate, N.A. Poe, also one of the organizers of the Smoke Down Prohibition events in Philadelphia. Actually, someone who really, the guy who really got me involved. And let's see if we can get him on right now. N.A. Poe, the stand-up and now probationee. Is that the word for us? Mr. Poe, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Awesome. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you none other than N.A. Poe of laughcast.com and the Panic Hour, a good friend of mine, former cellmate. And Mr. Poe, I do want to tell you, before we get into any of the more serious topics of this interview, that of all the secrets that you told me when you were frightened in jail and you admitted all these these crazy things about I haven't revealed any of them. Your secrets are still safe with me. I just want to make sure that you know that, and I have the utmost respect for the seriousness of your activism and your privacy.
Why, thank you, Adam.
And now I see you're dressed as a candidate, and you've got your candidate haircut on because you're running for Philadelphia City Council.
I am, as the Libertarian nominee on the ballot, my friend.
Congratulations! This is very exciting. Well, first of all, I think our audience needs a little bit of a recap from just what you've been up to since we last saw you in a jail cell in Philadelphia in May of last year, and I get to gloat a little bit now because it seems like your strategy didn't work out very well compared to mine, did it?
Well, in that particular case, no, it did not. I have a court hearing this Wednesday. They're trying to modify the conditions of my probation to allow me to not associate with any members of the Panic Hour, nor post on the Panic Hour social media page, et cetera, et cetera. So they're actually trying to get into my bedroom again, and they're trying to say that I can't live with my girlfriend, that I can't associate with Steve Miller, all this insane stuff. I had to go out and hire a lawyer and go to, now I got to go to court again on Wednesday. They won't stop. They just don't stop.
To be fair, associating with Steve Miller probably should be illegal. Your partner in crime.
I completely agree with that. So, I have a year of probation. Actually, yesterday was 4 months. So I have 8 months left. And, just going through it, man. I mean, I'm trying to stay clean. I've been clean for like 20 some odd days or something like that. Do you have to be clean?
No, I don't. I live in California. But you're actually smoking a cigarette, so I would hardly say that you're clen.
Yeah, I guess you're right.
I've also seen you naked, and I would definitely not say that you're clean in any other sense of the word. But Mr. Poe, this is from the Smoke Down incident in May, where we both got arrested and ended up in the special housing unit of the Philly Federal Penitentiary. And I played hardball and actually turned down the release offer for for a bond, and you accepted it, and you ended up taking a plea. And relatively speaking, it's
took a plea too, Kokesh. You took a plea too.
In a different case, under totally different circumstances. I'm not faulting you for taking the plea, but I think our case, and this is really cool, and it's exciting that you have been a part of this because you are still part of this glorious act of defiance that we engaged in together at Smoke Down Prohibition. We took slightly different tactics. Really, it was different in this. If you're in jail, do you accept the terms of release if their holding you is so obscene that it's politically unviable for them? If you don't accept that and say, I'll stay in jail, bring your case, assholes. In my case, it worked. They let me go. In your case, you got let go on pretrial release, but then you were still on the hook for everything else. And in my case, the charges got dropped. Now, this isn't to say this isn't a matter of blame, because it could have been from the data available. You made the right choice, and I made the wrong choice, and they could have kept me in there for another 90 days, waiting for trial, waiting for all of that, and it could have completely gone the other way. But now you've been dealing with this, so Are you really
that's
not
when
smoking?
You being a KGB agent and me not being one.
Oh
paid
yeah,
off.
That helped too. That really did help. No, I'm an Obama agent. Remember?
Oh yeah, that's right. But Adam, what you're saying about that's ridiculous. The main issue that was for me in that situation was the fact that I was charged with assaulting a federal officer, and I just was did not want to go to trial with these dirty cocksuckers. And face, I don't know what you're facing for assault on a federal officer, but it's got to be serious time. And,
oh, yes.
That's why I pled out.
And for your plea later on in the situation, I certainly can't fault you for that. And everybody has to make those decisions for themselves. Have you really not been smoking pot for most of a year?
Well, I'll be honest that I like failed a bunch of drug tests. I have to go into outpatient rehab starting Thursday. Um, Yo, check it out, right? I have to go into rehab, but they won't put me into rehab with other people because I quote, I would distract people that need actual treatment. So I am going to have to go to one-on-one outpatient treatment. So,
Wait a second. Hold on. They said you cannot, Mr. Poe, you cannot go into treatment with other people because you're going to, quote, distract people who need actual treatment. Are they admitting in that you don't need actual treatment?
I mean, I guess, like the problem is though, is that they're dirty, man. The worst part about being on probation is like you don't know what is right and wrong, and they are also at the same time they criminalize normal behavior. They
Right.
criminalize things that aren't criminal, and now they're going after my First Amendment rights again, trying to get me to not be able to associate with Steve Miller and James Babb and Rachel, my girlfriend, and they're saying I can't post on the Facebook social media account for Panic Hour in any capacity because it promotes illegal conduct. The Panic Hour started out as a comedy troupe. Now it's like, on the same list as Al Qaeda. So I don't really get
it. As if the government never promotes illegal activity in any form.
Right.
So what's your platform then? You're running for city council. I mean, maybe you should have kept smoking pot.
Yeah, right. Well, the thing is about it is that with it just being a year of probation, I want to get through it. My main issues for the campaign, and the thing is, although not entirely a libertarian, what I've done with the crafting of this campaign is to take national libertarian issues and to localize them. Okay, what I'm running on is the decriminalization of marijuana in Philadelphia. Okay.
Oh, really? I'm surprised. Why would you include that in your platform? Is that popular there?
Well, yeah, sir, it is, and we had a meeting with city council to work out to criminalize marijuana, and then it passed the committee, okay, for like their law and justice committee or some bullshit, and then it got tabled, okay, and said that they wanted to work administratively on it, which means that the cops and the politicians decided that they didn't want to criminalize marijuana and they were going to push it back. So I continued to pressure, and then this issue came up where the Libertarians got a free person on the ballot. So I decided to take it, run on the decriminalization of marijuana, the end of the stop and frisk policy in Philadelphia, which is, if you look at it in a more national way, it's illegal search and seizures, Fourth Amendment. I also am running on the platform of closing the spy center that they have in Philadelphia. We have an all points fusion center in Philadelphia that's collecting data and spying on our citizens. Also a national issue that's localized. Also, I found out that the City Council Ethics Committee has not met since 1993, Adam, when we were probably...
What were they doing at that point?
So I will gladly chair the ethics committee for them if they need someone to do that. So, I just think it's a good opportunity for me to get out there and to, try to, troll the shit out of local government. And if I could win a $111,000 job, I will make their lives a living fucking hell.
Well, there's one part of your platform here that's really missing. And from the last time we spent the night together in Philly, we were in a pretty unique government facility. And I was thinking, you remember that cage we were working out in?
I do.
Wouldn't that make a great dance club?
Yeah, it would. It would. It would.
Can you get a bill in the city council in Philadelphia to repossess a federal penitentiary there and, I don't know, do something more useful with it, perhaps?
Sure, like the eighth floor of special housing unit will now be, the co-catch dance club. I'm definitely for that.
All
yes.
right. Yes.
And another thing, it's just like in general, I'm so sick of all this bullshit, and I learned a lot about Philly politics. It's so dirty. It's like a mafia, and what we're trying to do is just like, really throw this into the system and really fuck with them as much as we can. And to be honest, we have a lot of steam in Philly. I'm doing a press conference outside the Spy Center today at 6:30. And we're really going to start making them, the thing is, most Philadelphians don't know what their government is doing to them. Obviously, the way that most Americans don't realize what the government's doing to them. So, on this small way, by calling some attention to them and being a thorn in their side, I think we're gaining some ground here.
So, I have to ask then, are you taking this as a serious campaign to win, or are you just taking advantage of the platform to spread a fun message?
You know what, Adam? People ask me that a lot, and I'm the type of person, I do not like losing, and everything I do to the best of my ability. There's probably like a 20% chance that I could win something like this. At the same time, I'm treating it as like an art project, a long format art project, a
Mm-hmm.
50-day shotgun campaign to try to call as many attention to the issues. And you know what? At the end of it, if I inspire Philadelphia to wake up out of their sleeping fucking TV filled lives and, they vote for me and get in there, I'll take the job.
All right. Well,
I would donate half. I have pledged to donate half of my salary to the citizens of Philadelphia, which would be approximately $55,000.
well, they can't possibly have that. They need their politicians to be able to buy nice suits and drive fancy cars. How can you possibly not indulge in that, Mr. Poe? Oh, right. You'll get plenty of other kickbacks, especially if you're in charge of the ethics committee. Right. Excuse me.
Yeah.
So it's a nice campaign promise. I can certainly appreciate that. Now, when we were in jail, we were actually talking about the franchising of Smokedown Prohibition events, and of course, both of us, for now different reasons, have to curtail our personal civil disobedience. But what is the status of Smokedown Prohibition? And I don't mean that just in terms of what's happening in Philadelphia. But we have Jacob Kelly, as a fan of Adam versus the Man in Youngstown, Ohio, who called in and said we're doing it there. And I mean, Ohio is even more draconian than Philadelphia. And we see 420 is coming up this Sunday. I'm hosting my own event. We're going to be hanging out, having a moment of some kind of reflection at the Santa Monica Pier. So how you actually created something in the Smokedown Prohibition as a monthly civil disobedience event out of Philadelphia that has become a national icon at this point in the end of the war on drugs. What's going on in Philadelphia, and what do you think of that legacy that you've got for yourself there?
I think that it's interesting how much that it's growing. Hold on one second, Adam. Sorry.
Uh-oh. What's going on in the Panic Hour studios now? N.A. Poe.
It's very interesting how much that it's
Wait. Hold on. What was that?
There was someone at my door.
Oh, was it Steve?
No, it wasn't Steve. It was my girlfriend.
Oh.
She says hello, Adam.
Excellent. Well, likewise. Yeah, that was for me, right? The blowing the kiss? Okay, appreciate that.
Yeah. Smokedown has grown, and branched out a little bit. And I mean, that is, inspiring that people have finally got to the point where they are letting, this expand. And I wish them the best of luck, because I can't have anything to do with saying anything about that or anything like that. Part of my new conditions calls Philly Normal and the Panic Hour illegal organizations that are promoting illegal conduct, and the defendant shall not publicly discuss or promote Smokedown Prohibition events that are currently planned or scheduled in the future. So I am doing vote down prohibition on Sunday.
All right. Well, N.A. Poe, thank you so much for joining us. It's good to see that your activism continues, although I'm really disappointed to see that the government has driven you into such a point of desperation and recklessness that you would now do something as dangerous and irresponsible as running for public office. But I wish you the best of luck.
Well, it'll be good for 2020 when you're running.
We can count on your support. I know. N.A. Poe, ladies and gentlemen, the Panic Hour, laughcast.com. Check it out.
Thanks so much, Adam.
All right, we go now to the Skype calls. We'll see who we've got on chats here. Jeffrey Langan. I am a libertarian candidate in Oregon. All right, also Skype later today. Let's see if we can get Jeffrey Langan on. Now, Oregon, I don't know. I haven't heard much out of the political scene in Oregon except for the state of Jefferson as a potential breakaway from California and Oregon, which would be exciting. And I know that there's some hardcore libertarians up in Oregon, but it looks like we're not getting Jeffrey on the call right now. So we'll go to Mitch Weechik. Dear Adam, what are your thoughts on romantic anarchism / libertarian romanticism? Wow. I think I'm going to have to call this guy about this because I really... Oh, this is Mitch Weechik we talked to last week. I'm really not sure exactly what he's talking about. Libertarians...
Hey, Adam, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Thank you so much for joining us, Mitch. I want to say this is a really fascinating question. And I think I know what you're talking about here, but please explain first for people who have no idea, and who knows, maybe I'm just pretending, what is romantic anarchism or libertarian romanticism?
Well, romanticism in general is mostly an artistic perspective. And one thing I've always found strange is a lot of romantics, they end up being nationalists. And I always found that weird because one of the things in romanticism is there's very much so an emphasis on individualism, which I thought that always fit much more with anarchism or libertarianism. What's weird is I talk with a lot of people within the artistic community, and I find a lot of them like they're much more liberal, they're much more progressive.
Right.
I got into this one debate with one guy on which one fit art better, capitalism or communism, and I own the kid basically.
That's a brilliant question. That's so fun. I mean, you could write a book answering that.
I'm already kind of starting it, but I'm not far in, obviously.
Okay, so what? Well, let me try to answer that first, but I do want to come back to these terms. But why are romantics nationalists? And it really makes sense if you think about it. That if you're a romantic, and you know, forgive me if I'm maybe generalizing or misunderstanding this, but nationalism in and of itself is a delusionary romantic idea. You know, this love of some artificial construct, a love of an idea, and it comes from, you know, I think an inherent individual weakness. You know, this goes to the very well established psychology theory of downward social comparison theory. You know, we build our egos and our sense of self-worth from comparing ourselves to, you know, outgroups downwardly. So when you're in that state, you know, it is the logical solution is to address your insecurities, to change the way you talk to yourself, to live differently, to address whatever underlying problems there are. The the irrational answer, I might call it maybe a romantic answer, would be, let's just say we're members of this wonderful collective by virtue of falling into the same geographical area under the same government, and we can all, instead of being individuals with poor self-esteem, we can all be proud Americans.
You know, I can see how most romantics would look at it in that light, but in a sense, I've always looked at it more as anarchism being the great romantic fantasy soon to become a reality, if you will.
Well,
like in a sense, we're moving towards it slowly. And right now it's kind of in that romantic fantasy area, but you see it slowly coming more and more of a reality day to day.
Sure. Well, and I would say that that's the better rational romantic idea. I mean, it's like if nationalism is hopeless, you know, unrequited love where you're, you know, just you're falling at somebody's feet and they're brushing you off all the time and you're getting stomped on as some poor tax cattle, then, you know, it's that kind of romance. And yes, there's a different romance to anarchism, and I wonder if is this what you mean by libertarian romanticism or romantic anarchism then?
Yeah, personally, I've always referred to it more as new romanticism, as I've referred to it.
Well, it's very interesting because if anything, I think our movement prides itself in being much more rational, and it's not that rational is. I haven't really explored the term romantic or how it applies to the, you know, the themes that I find interesting. But this is a really fascinating conversation. I appreciate you bringing this up. But my initial reaction is to think of romantic as being not completely or diametrically, but in a large sense in conflict with rationality. Is that right?
No, I think they both go together. Actually,
okay.
I think they're both two totally different things in this case.
Okay, well, I would say if romanticism is you know, passionate engagement in ideas that invoke something romantic in you or some overwhelming sense of attraction or affection, then you can have that based on rational observations, based on rational self-knowledge and understanding, or you can have it based on delusion, as you know, most, I think, people consider, you know, that in that realm as being somewhat non-scientific at least.
Yeah, I probably agree with you. It kind of comes to, like, you can be romantic, but then you have that little fork in the road on whether you go down the rational reason way or whether you go down the more nationalist path,
right?
Which unfortunately a lot of people seem to.
I might describe it just slightly differently to say that, is your romanticism based on rational ideas or delusional ideas? And nationalism is based on delusional ideas, but it's still a romantic idea. Whereas, you know, the passion that I think we feel as libertarians to establish a society that respects the individual will is still a very romantic idea, but then one that is based on a rational analysis of the world and human relations, right?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. The other thing I wrote is like, why aren't there as many libertarians in the arts? That's what I've been wondering, because like it seems like if you really wanted to get the message out of liberty more, wouldn't you want to try and get it out through the greatest medium there is, art?
Well, we'd have to challenge or at least examine your presumption there, right? Is it true that there are less libertarians in the arts than, say, in the general population?
Well, I can't speak for everyone, but I'm only speaking from my own experiences, from the people who I've met within the art community, who tend to, like, as to quote my friend David, who I met at this showcase a few months ago. Oh, the Libertarian Party. Oh yeah, they're crazy. Like, it's kind of like they've already come to a conclusion before even knowing what libertarianism actually is.
Right. Well, I mean, we can always introduce the common understanding that everybody's a libertarian. They just haven't figured it out yet, right? Because it's a conclusion that you come to. The idea that all human relations should be free of coercion. I mean, pretty simple. It's not like it's not an opinion. It's a conclusion of a rational analysis. But I really do. I think I would disagree with your premise here, because you might see that there are more artists that parrot the establishment line, and that if artists get successful by selling to the mainstream, and when you have a homogenized culture based on a broadcast model, the push model of television and radio, for example, or even the consolidation of the music industry, and even as we saw until recently, I mean, historically speaking, until several decades ago, consolidation of just printing capabilities. We take it for granted we can all either go to the library or Kinko's or FedEx office or to our living room and print something. But even that is a relatively recent development. But still, we have massive control. And if your view of what is the arts is, well, it's Miley Cyrus and sitcoms, well, you're going to be like, yeah, I'm a little disappointed. But even then, even from that analysis, I mean, you look at, some people would say, I think Jeffrey Tucker wrote a story about how much cultural influence is, libertarian based in like Breaking Bad, and there were a couple other TV shows he pointed out that were very popular.
Well, I see libertarian influences everywhere too. That's the thing. Like, I went to Broadway a few months back. I saw Chicago. Like, there's this great line at the end. These two women, they've both gotten off for murder and all these horrible things. And it's like, we're a great shining example of America's judicial system. And it's like, there's a little one right there. And there's tons of them throughout everything.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Well, it's when you see a theme of anti-authoritarianism in any form as libertarian, it's tempting to go, well, aren't you a libertarian? And then, oh no, I just had this one idea that makes a lot of sense. And I think you got to be careful in that. But I still think it's one of those really immeasurable things, but I would wager, and if someone did a study, maybe they could demonstrate conclusively, I would bet proportionately more artists are libertarian than the general population, for exactly the reason that you say, and that it is something that inspires a certain passion, because people take it as an opportunity, like, hey, I'm a libertarian activist, what can I do to spread the message? Oh, well, I've got this art skill or something, how can I mean, in a way, it's for me like, hey, I'm an artist. I create this art, 2-hour podcast every day. It's a creative effort. I'm a professional blowhard, but I consider what I do a creative thing. And it's like, well, because this is where my skills are best applied to spread the message. I think, you see a lot of people that don't come out then and identify as libertarian because they know it's easier to get into the mainstream with a subtler message. But, even in pop music, you could look at Miley Cyrus's transformation, if, whatever you want to define that as being libertarian. She's saying, hey, I'm an adult now. I'm going to do whatever the hell I want. I'm going to sing about Molly. I'm going to sing about doing drugs and having sex. And you can't stop me. I mean, that's a very libertarian message, because she, like anybody else, is inherently libertarian. Am I revealing too much about my hidden obsession with Miley Cyrus here?
Not at all. I'll be honest, I always thought she was the worst advertisement for weed.
If you smoke weed, you might end up with a funny haircut. Surprise, surprise. Okay, so This is a really fascinating conversation. Well, what do you think is the takeaway for libertarian artists or for people that want to use art to spread a more powerful message, and the inherent relationship between what we consider an anarchist or excuse me, a very rational deductive philosophy versus the very emotional world of art?
What can I say about that? That's such a broad question that you just brought up. I would definitely say, don't be afraid to call yourself a libertarian. Don't be afraid to spread the message of liberty. That's stupid. Don't like call yourself a neoclassical liberal or whatever just so you have the name liberal so people will take you more seriously.
Wait a sec. Hold on a second. Now, I can appreciate that for an individual, but I thought part of the point was, hey, I'm going to make art that's somewhat abstract, that doesn't cram something down your throat, and you're going to be more likely to receive it if the deliverer of that doesn't have a label at all on them. I thought the point was avoiding labels so that you can communicate directly as an artist.
That's true too. You've brought up a very broad question. It's kind of I'm trying to work it out right now, if I could say so. But I would say just try and get the message out there through whatever medium you can, whether it be through what I personally like, the theater, whether it be through art like spray paint, even spray graffiti art. I'll give it credit. Like I've seen so much libertarian graffiti art; it isn't funny.
Would you describe yourself as an artist?
Oh yeah, definitely.
And you're primarily in theater?
Theater was yeah, that's primarily what I'm actually about to go to school to major in show production, actually.
Well, I think most people don't know this about me, but I was actually a serious theater geek growing up. I'm maybe not a serious geek, maybe that's not the right way of putting it, but pretty much every year in school growing up, I was in some significant theatrical production, at least until college. And even in college, I was Prince Dauntless and Once Upon a Mattress, and I wore a wig.
I was just in that show recently.
No way.
Shit.
Who were you? Who did you play?
I was knight number one.
Oh,
Nothing special.
Okay. Well, so I sang in like falsetto as Prince Dauntless. I did a bunch of one acts in college. I was Lysander in Midsummer Night's Dream. I was Mark in a chorus line. And I think it's a very valuable background. It's a great means of communication that just provides another mechanism of spreading the message. Although that was all before I was really an activist, so I can't say I brought any of my ideology to that. But it certainly was a great influence on me and helped get me where I am today.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'll be honest. When I first started off in theater and stuff, I really wasn't a libertarian. I'll even be honest. I was a communist.
I'm glad to hear
that you say before. Your thing was like, oh, I don't want to be a Democrat or Republican. What else is there? Libertarian. For me, I didn't even know libertarian existed at the time. My friend Jonathan comes up to me here, read Trotsky. Wow, this is something different. I'll take it.
Well, congratulations. It's good to hear that you're better now. What else did you read after that? How did you make that switch?
I remember like this is probably the weirdest. Like everyone will say, oh, Ron Paul woke me up. Someone like that. Strangest for me was probably Mark Emery, because like when I heard about Mark Emery, I watched that documentary about him, and somewhere on the way he mentioned Ron Paul. I looked into Ron Paul, and then it all just went from there.
Awesome. Well, Mitch, thanks so much for calling in and bringing up a subject I really would hope to be able to get into more on the show, and I mean that much more broadly. And it's funny because, just having just moved to LA, I told myself I would like never drive, and I'm still a total homebody, but I've been driving enough that I've gotten a sense, and I've what am I saying? I mean, I've lived in LA County before. I've driven around LA plenty, but you understand what drives like the music culture and the car culture. But I'm finally getting time to indulge in music myself, and I guess I should make this as a public service announcement for those of you that are tuning in for the live show. And when you come to adamversustheman.com/live, you notice that there are, if you come early, you'd have to, if we weren't broadcasting, we'd have to refresh the page. So we started broadcasting an hour before the show starts, and the mix that we had in there until today. Well, even today we're not like fully recovered from Adam's prior music choices, but it could have been described as Adam's not quite hits of the 80s and 90s. And now we've got some great suggestions. We're going to be building some fun lists, and anybody that wants to throw something in that's going to help us get pumped up, email adam@adamversustheman.com with either files for MP3s or links to YouTube videos or links to other places we can download music. And we don't have to worry about intellectual property because we're only broadcasting this for the pre-show, but we really want to support other libertarian artists, and it's really cool to see how much this is coming along. If anything, I haven't appreciated enough. Jeffrey, the band Leaders Led? Have you heard of them? They've been getting around the movement. Sierra knows. Sierra's down with the East Coast liberty music scene for sure, right? And having been a assistant roadie temporarily for Rebel Inc. as well, another great liberty band out of where are they based out of? Baltimore, right, Baltimore. But like Leaders Led, they handed me a CD at an event, and I'm like, I don't have time to listen to music. If I want to listen to music, I put on Pandora and I listen to the Nickelback station. Thanks, thanks. And I put their CD in my car because I was cleaning out my car the other day, and I was like, whatever, throw this in. I was like, holy crap, this is really good music. That was 2 years ago that they gave us. Yeah, that they gave me that CD. They gave me that CD 2 years ago. And I was just like, you know what, all right, we'll listen to it. Like, there's a whole other world of great music out there, and I feel, almost like I discovered water. Here I am. Oh my God, have you guys heard of water? It's amazing. Have you guys heard of music? Libertarians make it too, really, and they make good music. You should check it out. Well, we know about I think Jordan Page, who had the first theme song for Adam versus the Man and Rebel Inc. Killing the Future, which is our current theme song. And I'm really excited to be getting into this now and seeing so many people sharing great music with me. But you're also, I'm also realizing, and this goes back to the conversation with Mitch, that there are lots of artists out there with very strong libertarian inclinations or really powerful songs that they just want to be artists first. They want to be musicians first. They're not ideologues like us activists. And so they've got all sorts of other stuff that they're about. And so I'm seeing like individual songs. I'm going, wow, those guys are kind of libertarian too. And it's, I think it's just a great way to make connections. And I feel like I don't know, I owe somebody an apology, maybe just my audience, maybe myself. I owe myself an apology for being so statist and conformist when it comes to music, but I'm getting better now. Right, Jeffrey? Sort of. Thanks. Oh, he's like, he started. This is, can we tell people about your musical background, Jeffrey? No? You already have. I already have? Okay, fair enough. You can look up Jeffrey Phillips on your own if you like. All right, let's go back. Let's get back to Skype here. We've got a bunch of people lined up. Joni, that's me. Let's see. When is this from? From Friday, and then there's one from today. I've lived in the States from March 2012 to August last year. And in this time, I learned a lot about myself. And in the beginning, I really had problems fitting with others my age. In this time, I saw one of your videos, which inspired me. Then I kept watching your videos, which helped me embrace the fact that I don't fit in with anybody else or with everyone else. This is Jonathan from Augsburg, Germany. Let's see if we can get him on the line. So he says, but since I came back to Germany, I realized, holy shit, I don't fit in here either. Actually, far less than in the States. And talking to people over here, I see some challenges that we might have in the U.S., but that are far bigger over here in Europe regarding anarchism. I'd love to talk about these things over Skype, but only if it's fitting. It is very fitting. Let's see if we can, but he's not answering his call right now. This is why when we're on the live show, we're just going to take whoever is popping up at the top. So if you hear, you gotta keep chatting me and jump up. See, right now on top we've got Jeffrey Langan, who says, I'm in a doctor's appointment for my wife, should be done in 20 minutes. This is the fun of using Skype for video calls on an internet show. Welcome to the future, people. All right, Andrew Demeter, let's get him on, old friend of the show. You should call me because it's past my bedtime, but I'm an anti-establishment anarchist. Holy crap. That was from, that was from Sunday. Darn, I thought that was from like a year ago. And I remembered I only created this account recently, but this is from today. He would like to add us. No, it's from Friday. Do we not have anybody else who wants to join us? Brandon Herrera. No, all of these are from the last show. We don't have anybody else. No, it's the most recent ones are on the top, aren't they? They should be. It better be. No? Do we have someone who was calling in for the high school project today? Is that happening? Or is it someone we can call? No? All right. Well, it's a good thing we've got some more story stacked up here. No one wants to join us. No one wants to join us on the Skype today. It's so sad. Yeah. We got a contact request. Or did I read some of these? Nope. That's it. All right. Well, let's take a story and we'll put it up on Facebook if anybody wants to join us. We'll see if we get some more calls. Okay. Well, we definitely have plenty of awesome stories stacked up here that we did not get to earlier because I couldn't stop ranting about the IRS. Sorry about that. Special ed student who recorded bullies accused of felony wiretapping is the headline from Pennsylvania, where a high school sophomore with developmental disabilities was convicted of a crime after recording classmates threatening to, quote, pull down his pants. After being regularly shoved and tripped and nearly burned with a cigarette lighter, a tormented special needs student in Pennsylvania decided to take matters into his own hands. He secretly recorded the abuse on a school-issued iPad, and his mother eventually submitted the evidence to the school's principal. But instead of punishing the teenage tyrants caught on tape, administrators decided to call the police, who threatened the 15-year-old boy with felony wiretapping, but later reduced the charge to disorderly conduct. He was found guilty on March 19. This is one of those stories you hear and you're like, wait a second, is this, no, really? What kind of sick asshole puts a kid in this situation? And I guess you could take that a couple of ways in terms of the parents entrusting the government with their child's education, or the government kind of forcing people into government-run schools. But really, it's not just one asshole here. To make this happen, I mean, do you like for someone to be found guilty of a charge? Do you know how many people have to be involved in this? And in this case, it's not even just something coming out of a law enforcement officer or a cop and the normal criminal court system. It also involves everybody at the school level as well. This isn't the first time that developmentally disabled kids have covertly recorded bullying on school grounds, but it's the first case where the victim has been criminally convicted for doing so. At least 9 such incidents occurred across the country between 2003 and 2013, often resulting in the firing of school employees, the expulsion of students, and legal settlements worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. Yeah, that's how it's supposed to happen, sort of. And while it shouldn't make much of a difference, previous incidents have mostly involved parents slipping discreet spyware into their children's pockets rather than the child taking action. But think about this from the perspective of, how does society help the disadvantaged? How do we deal with, people that really need help? And under a government system, you've completely removed accountability to the point where a parent doesn't have much of a choice, in a sense, economically, what they do with their child. And a lot of them, and I think parents, a lot of parents can do a better job of standing up to government and say, no, I'm going to take charge of my child's education. But yes, they are bullied into this situation. It is economically less feasible to homeschool for a lot of them, or they're simply convinced that they are not capable. The government. And imagine this: if you went to a government school for 12 years and you were told the whole time that you're incapable of surviving without government, you're not going to think that you're not going to have the confidence to teach your own child or allow them to teach themselves, which would obviously be far better than having the government fill their head with propaganda until they're 18 or older, in the case of those that go to government-run colleges. The Pennsylvania student, a sophomore who remained unnamed in a report on benswan.com, was previously diagnosed with comprehension delay disorder, anxiety disorder, and ADHD. In his testimony, he claimed that he decided to record the incident in order to show his mother that he wasn't lying about the ongoing abuse. I was really just having things like books, slammed upside my head. I wanted it to stop. I just felt like nothing was being done. So, first of all, think about this. You have a disabled child. This is from the parent's perspective, and his mother thinks he's lying when he's saying that he's being bullied. Oh, well, it's a government-run school, kid. Enjoy. There's no way that you could possibly be bullied at a government-run school. I mean, never mind that government is inherently a bullying group. It is based on intimidation. The original recording was suspiciously deleted by school authorities, though as described on benswan.com. The boy's mother, Shay Love, recounted it during the hearing. According to Love, as the teacher is heard attempting to help her son with a math problem, the student says, you should pull his pants down. Another student replies, quote, no, man, imagine how bad that C blank blank T. I imagine that's cunt. Smells. No one wants to smell that, and then it's T blank blank T. Is there any curse word that's T blank blank T? I think there's one missing here. For taint? As the recording continues, the teacher instructs the classroom that they may only talk if it pertains to math. Shortly thereafter, a loud noise is heard on the recording, which her son explained was a book being slammed down next to him after a student pretended to hit him in the head with it. When the teacher yells, the student exclaims, "What? I was just trying to scare him." A group of boys are heard laughing. Now, first of all, what kind of sick teacher allows this to continue in her classroom? Well, clearly a government employee. After listening to her son's evidence, Love eventually reported to the South Fayette High School principal, who instead of disciplining the bullies involved, called the police to interrogate her visibly distraught son. When Love arrived, the principal said the student was facing felony wiretapping charges because he had made a recording in a place where there is an expectation of privacy. I'm sorry, fuck your expectation of privacy. There is no such thing as a right to privacy. There is only property rights. Think about this for a second. It's like, do you have a right to own a gun? Do you have a right? Do you need a special Second Amendment to protect that? Do you have a right to freedom of speech? No. You have a right to own yourself. You have a right to own stuff. You don't need a special right to own guns. You have a right to be secure in your property. You don't have this abstract right to privacy that you get to carry around with you wherever you go and say, oh, he was filming me in a public place, but I have an expectation of privacy here because I'm a student in a school. Hell no. Especially if you're in a government-run institution. You have no expectation of privacy. You shouldn't, but do you own that? If you don't own that school, you cannot tell other people what to do on that property if the property owner hasn't told you that. Now, of course, you can make this abstract roundabout case. Well, the government's the owner, and the government has no legitimate claim to property rights by definition whatsoever. But the government's the owner. They're telling you, you can't film here. Now, why would they do that? Why would they prosecute someone for filming in such an institution? It's really simple. To escape accountability, to not have to hold people accountable for their actions. It really should come as no surprise that it worked out this way, although it's disgusting to see that this is what they resort to. How much easier would it be to simply say, oh, wow, we have a problem. Let's address this problem. But instead, no, we're going to just, let's cover it up. Let's say that pointing out the problem is the problem. And this is the incentive that government inherently creates for someone who's a school administrator. If something comes up like this as a problem, if parents start complaining, hey, my child is being bullied, well, what's the problem here? You're not getting paid to deliver actual services to the parents. You have no accountability to the consumer. The problem is not that people are getting bullied. The problem is that parents are complaining about it. What do? Well, let's just make it illegal for parents to complain about their children being bullied in the school. Let's just make it illegal under felony wiretapping laws for one disabled student to hold his fellow students accountable when they're bullying him, when they're threatening him, when they're physically assaulting him. Really? Recording laws vary from state to state, but Pennsylvania is one of just 12 states that require the consent of all parties involved. In the remaining states, consent is not mandatory as long as the person recording is present during the conversation. Despite his emotional testimony and his mother's pleas, the Pennsylvania student was eventually found guilty, though he plans to appeal the ruling during his next court appearance on April 29. The bullies were never punished. And here, I mean the bullies, not just as in the bullies in this incident, but the bullies who were teaching in that school, who were administering that school, who ran the court system that passed down this obscene sentence, and everybody who was behind this. I wonder if it was a jury trial. What fucking jury would convict a kid for felony wiretapping under these circumstances? Well, when you have a judge that doesn't acknowledge jury nullification and says, no, you will only rule on the facts of the case, not the law itself, well, maybe it's possible, but holy crap, what kind of sick society do we live in when we see the reporting of a problem as the problem instead of the problem itself? All right, let's see. We've got someone on Skype here, Brandon Fortis. What's that? Brandon Herrera? Who's that? Should we bring him on right now? Is he ready? All right. Brandon Herrera. Let's see if we can get him on the line here and get back to... Yeah. All right, we've also got Dave who's chatted us, and we'll see if we can get a couple more Skype callers in here before the end of the show. Brandon, welcome to Adam versus the Man. How you doing, sir?
Hey, Adam.
What's on your mind today?
Hey, what's going on?
Just another beautiful day in the life.
Well, first of all, I wanted just to start out by thanking you personally, because you may not have known it, but last year during the summer, you brought me to libertarianism.
Wow. While I was in jail.
Yeah, well,
From jail.
actually, that very incident, because while you were going through your slight unpleasantness there, bit of an understatement.
You mean my government-induced, taxpayer-funded spiritual retreat? Yes, it was quite enjoyable.
Oh, I'm sure it was very relaxing for you.
you.
But while you were doing that, I was working a yard job during the summer, and I downloaded pretty much every single one of the Adam versus the Man podcasts, and that's all I listened to, running a weed whacker on a lawnmower. And for about a month, maybe a little less, that's all I listened to, and by the end of it, I was sold.
Wow. Well, I'm almost embarrassed. You listened to me for a whole month, and it took that long.
Oh no, I was bought before then, but you kept me hooked.
Okay, well tell me about that process, because I'm really, I think we all want to know how people come to this understanding of the world, or come to the conclusion of freedom. And there are a lot of ways that we mythologize that process and get it wrong. But here we have such a beautiful recent test case in you of someone who can say it was this exact process. I mean, for me, it was such a convoluted process over 10 years. I can't tell you, I can point out various influences, but I'm a really slow learner. You got it in a month. Describe it, not just, it was listening to the Adam versus the Man podcast, but, what ideas, what was the process, what were your objections that you were able to overcome, and what were your attachments to statism that you were able to give up?
Well, before I ever listened to you or anybody, I was a libertarian in the way that I was a conservative with socially liberal beliefs.
Right.
And I was a big Alex Jones fan, everything like that. And that's how I heard about you, was Alex Jones actually covered you. And I'm like, okay, let me go check this guy out. And really what did it is I like to consider myself anyways a decently logical person. And when I started listening to, you were the first introduction I ever had to the non-aggression principle, to anything like that. And I didn't buy into it at first. I'm like, anarchy. Pfft, I've seen the movies. And I was really, I kind of dismissed you as crazy with interesting points at first.
Okay.
And then the more I listened, the more I'm like, you know what? This guy's actually kind of making sense. And it took a little while before I was ever willing to admit that I was an anarcho-capitalist, that crazy A word. And for a while, I hid under voluntarist because it sounds a lot more neutral.
Well, I don't think you have to. I mean, really, the term libertarian, you believe in freedom. If you believe in freedom, you are, and you believe in it consistently, that idea is fundamentally incompatible with any coercion at all, but certainly any institutionalized coercion, and therefore government cannot exist morally. So it's, I think what you said earlier was so incredible. You called yourself a libertarian, but really you were a conservative with liberal ideas for social issues. And I think that's really the problem here. Going back historically, the ideas of liberty were really first codified, and maybe I'm showing my literary historical ignorance here, but in my opinion, at least from my observation, codified first by Rothbard in the 70s as a coherent philosophy. And a lot of people went, wow, this is awesome, it's beautiful, the universal nonviolence, how do we achieve this? And half the people went, well, this means, we have to rethink everything. People are going to have to give up some of their most cherished beliefs. People are going to have to give up their attachment to the violence and coercion of the state. People are going to have to start seeing the world differently. Well, let's make it easy for them. Let's break it off into small pieces. Instead of saying that we're for the abolition of the state because we're against violence, let's say we want less violence. And minarchism became that compromise, right? Whereas if you're a true libertarian, minarchism is not, a minarchist society with a limited government is only a step in the right direction. But if anything, it could be seen as, a step in the wrong direction, because you cut a cancer down to 10% and then you just let it sit there. Well, what do you think you're going to get? So
I think that's actually, that's very true, because that's a big ideological jump to make.
Right.
Because that was a big crutch for me, because I the whole time I'm like, I don't like government. I really don't like it. but abolish government. Oh, no. We need that for like the post office and stuff.
We
So
couldn't possibly figure a way to deliver packages from point A to point B without pointing guns at people along the way.
And I really like the power of internet memes is fantastic, but they had one with Lysander Spooner. It says, "Stop anarchy before we have an efficient postal service."
Right, stop anarchy before we have an efficient postal service, and that was a big thing for the great Lysander Spooner, of course. And maybe thank you for mentioning him specifically, because maybe I'm doing him a disservice by saying by giving Rothbard too much credit. But I think Rothbard's writing was much more comprehensive and complete in that sense than Lysander's, as important and revolutionary as it was. And it really, I think for me to say what I said earlier definitely does a disservice to Spooner, and probably many others who quietly went before him and were shouted down or not recognized, because violent people have been in control for pretty much as long as we've been in, since we've evolved from the apes. So,
and it's not just one set thing. It's like you said earlier. You said it's a logical conclusion. It's not an opinion. So there probably never was one originator who had it first that we'll ever know about. But it's just a lot of different people who said, "Hey, you know what? The state isn't exactly as great as we made it out to be."
So when people first latched onto this, though, and we can still trace it back to Rothbard in terms of the American movement and the Libertarian Party in 1972 and things like that, and how that really created, a base of libertarians, or started people, embracing the ideology. And it went like two ways. People, some people said, no, let's be true to this philosophy. Let's call government for what it is a gang of thugs, is premised on coercion, and let's be absolutely consistent and true to this message, because that's what's going to wake people up. And the other half said, no, let's invent this thing called minarchism, and let's just win people over to less government, because that'll be moving in the right direction. But the problem is then you get a lot of people who are libertarians who don't get it. Well, they call themselves libertarians when, as you point out, they're really just conservatives. I mean, by the definition of conservative, wanting to preserve established social institutions. Yes, well, we need the government for the courts and for the law enforcement. Really? Have you examined that? Do you realize how that's an anti-freedom proposition? Do you understand how freedom applies to those issues? Obviously not. You are simply falling back on the emotional knee-jerk conservatism, which is, fearful of change, wanting to preserve existing social institutions. We couldn't possibly get all these things accomplished without using the violence of government. That's a conservative position. That's not a libertarian position. And I think to get back to what your dilemma with the terminology, a lot of people do that. And yes, anarcho-capitalism was the word that Rothbard coined and he was obviously not a PR guy, because if you've got a new idea, the worst thing you could do is take two terrible words,
inflammatory words
that everybody hates, and put them together to describe what you're talking about. Like, what are the worst words that I could come up with to describe this philosophy? Well, it's kind of like anarchism, and it's kind of like capitalism. I know, anarcho-capitalism. No,
I can beat you there. I can beat you. Somebody had a worse named idea. It was called anarcho-communism.
Right. Well, except that the communist part there deserves everything it gets. But we use anarcho-capitalism or anarchism now to describe very specifically true libertarianism, but it's really just libertarianism. And rather than call out people who call themselves libertarians as wrong or false libertarians, it's like, no, you're really just a libertarian-leaning conservative. And I think it's important to make that distinction and to not demonize people, but to still stand our ground and say, no, this is what libertarianism means. If you believe in freedom, a coercive state cannot exist in your ideal world. It cannot exist morally. Therefore, if you don't believe in that, you're not a libertarian, you're a conservative.
Absolutely. And can I plug something for you real quick that I think fits into your theme?
Please do.
At the beginning of the year, I had started an idea, something called Operation Planters Week. I don't know if you heard anything about that.
No, but it sounds exciting. Is that the week before 420 you go scatter marijuana seeds everywhere? That's
exactly what it is. And we had opened it up a long time ago, and I actually got NA Pose just on here and the Panic Hour, and they got behind it. And really, it's more of their event now, but we're all really excited about it because we had this idea, and it's just any public property, maybe Bundy public type, Not police stations. Oh God, no! Don't please. Nobody out there. Don't go do that. But
Please, whatever you do.
it's going to be total chaos for them to try to enforce something like that if it's everywhere.
Well, it's cool if you think about the possibility of all unclaimed land, because there's no such thing as public land. It's simply unclaimed in its natural state, right? Or
Don't tell the government that.
Don't tell the government that. Yes, and no, that's we're going to get into this more heavily tomorrow around the Bundy Ranch, because that really is the exciting crux of that issue that we want people to examine more in depth is what is a legitimate claim to property rights, and if you believe in that you can't that everybody has free natural, or everybody should have equitable access to natural resources, that no one's fair usage of natural resources should ever be forcefully impeded, then it is immoral to simply claim land to sequester it, whether you're an individual or government. And the idea of government owning land is in and of itself a violation of any just concept of property rights. So we're going to get into that, in more depth. But last year,
I think Stefan Molyneux said it best when he said that the Bundy situation is a result of the U.S. government using the equivalent of the Microsoft Paint fill tool on the West, regardless of who is living there.
Yes, the paint bucket option. Right, exactly.
Yeah, there you go. We need some land. Click,
we'll take
click, click. Cool.
We'll take everything. We'll take everything that's not claimed. Exactly. But back to Planters Week. I would never ever suggest, although someone who called into the show did, that bong water could be used as an effective distraction for drug dogs, and it's very versatile. If you're if you have access to large quantities of bong water, it could be spilled in the backseat of a police car. It could be around a police station, or where people are getting busted for pot. And I would never ever suggest such illegal activity interfering with government. It is an interesting tactic to consider.
And on that note, what about those little shotgun shells? Have you seen those yet? That you put the seeds inside of it and.
Oh, no way! Is that actually happening? People are like shooting out of a shotgun seeds in order to disperse them.
Oh yeah. Jeffrey actually shared it the other day, I think, on Facebook, and that's awesome to me. I think that's incredible. I mean, I'm a huge gun nut, and when you take things like this and you like planting and flowers and organic gardening and things like that, and combine it with firearms, how can you go wrong with that?
Shoot marijuana seeds, smoke later. Brandon, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
All right, let's see. Now we got a couple calls on the line. We'll see if we can take a few more quick. Someone says they would like to call in, but don't have anything to contribute to the conversation. Well, that's not exactly a strong pitch, Dave, but thanks. And thanks for the Litecoin support. But just tell me what you want to talk about, and we will get you in. All right, here we go. Police brutality. We've got a call from Clint, who's calling in with a particular story to share that we arranged by email, I believe. Let's see if we can get Clint on. Clint, are you there?
Yes, sir.
Welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you.
So tell us about this incident. Please give us the background.
Well, I'm actually currently in the hospital right now, so I don't know how long I'll have before my doctor gets in here. But essentially, we've been protesting outside of or on the side of the road in Enterprise, Alabama, for the last few weeks. And yesterday, we happened to be doing it on police corruption. The police showed up, and apparently they didn't like our signs. And they attempted to arrest my younger brother. I got both of their names and their badges on video camera, and I let them know, like, hey, you have no right to be doing this, blah, blah, blah. Well, as soon as they put him into the car, they came after me, started telling me to put my hands behind my back, told them that, you have no right to arrest me. So I sat down on the ground and I placed my hands underneath my butt to, not assist in my own kidnapping. Well, the cops then dragged me to the car. I have no feeling in my left hand from the handcuffs. My legs are all messed up from being dragged to the car. Once we were taken to the county jail, they basically held us for 24 hours for what they said was a medical evaluation. They said we were either insane or under the influence of a drug because we were too passionate about protesting.
Holy shit.
We were never given a medical evaluation We also did not receive a drug test or anything like that.
And so you, just to be clear, you were protesting other issues before that, but when you start protesting police brutality, you get brutalized by the police.
Yes, sir.
Oh, dude, is that Adam Kokesh?
Yeah. And actually, my younger brother, the one that was also
Hello,
was
gentlemen.
also arrested with me. And then this is my friend Robert. He was also there with us.
Well,
So
go ahead, please.
so yeah, right now, you know, we're actually.
One of the officers are out there. That's where they came in to check on you.
Yeah,
So,
so
he's parked in an ambulance-only zone with his car running right
Yeah,
now.
Okay,
right
so
now.
there's an
So,
officer
you
here
know-
coming to see you in the hospital who is parked outside in an ambulance-only zone in order to see you. Do you wanna get them on Skype and get some real accountability
Well,
here?
we don't know if they're here for us, but if they are, if he definitely comes to see me, I will be placing the camera in his face.
Well, hey, if you need to stay where you're sitting right now, do you want to pass your phone to your brother to show us this police car? We'll hang on the line. We'll go a little over today to get this whole story.
All right, I will be out there in a second.
Well, please introduce yourself and describe exactly where you are.
I am Aaron Gonzalez. I'm in the Enterprise Hospital right now, and we are in the emergency room. Yesterday we were protesting about police corruption, and the police did not take too kind of it and said that they did not like what we had on our signs. One of the signs said, "Honk if you're against police corruption." The other one said, "You will not be brutalized for honking." And yeah, right here's the police car. It is running right now.
It is running with the keys in the ignition in an ambulance-only parking spot.
Do you see the keys?
Wow. Well,
You see that?
let's see if we can go find this officer. Yeah, get us close, and if you can keep your
he's-
phone oriented vertically there, because that's how it's coming through on Skype. And the sign there says ambulance parking only. So
Yes, sir.
let's see if we can find this officer
All right,
in the
he
hospital
is
now.
inside. He is at like one of the main checkouts or like desks inside the hospital. Would you like, or I think I see him through the sign right now.
Absolutely, and please, when you do approach him, let him know that he is being recorded and broadcast live.
Yes, sir. All right, I will be holding the camera at him. He's on the walkie-talkie right now. Oh, and by the way, this is one of the officers that held a taser at us yesterday while we were being arrested. And we were not being in any way, shape, or form violent. We were having a peaceful protest, and I held my hands up like this and made them work. We have videos. He's talking to a lady right now.
Well, feel free to at least politely approach, and if you can get him to engage, we'd love to see what he has to say for himself.
Okay. Give him a minute to. I think he's just trying to ignore me.
Unsurprising.
I know, right?
Well, when you do approach him, please, be polite. Extend a hand to shake and tell him who you are, and recount the situation, and at least so that he can acknowledge that and inform him that he's being recorded and broadcast live. But I hope that we can help, at least in this case. This is pretty amazing product of modern technology that we're broadcasting live online and able to help you in a small mechanism for police accountability.
Can I have a word with you? You're on the call? Okay. He's on call right now. So, well, first off, did you know that you are in an ambulance parking only with your car running?
That is for emergency parking. I don't have to answer.
Did you understand that your vehicle is running? I'm videotaping him.
This is their property.
Okay, so they are saying that I'm violating
Of course.
patient confidentiality.
Right.
So,
So if you have a police officer in a hospital, they can get away with whatever they want because they can't be recorded. Right.
apparently,
Well, of course, he's also allowed to disregard the rules of the hospital and compromise their ability to deliver services. But I'm really not surprised at this. Why don't you go outside though, and or should we go back and check on your brother? But you can go outside and wait for this officer to leave, or at least see if he's going to move his vehicle in any kind of timely manner. I assume if he's
Well,
parked there, he's
he
not
says
planning on
that
staying
he's on
indefinitely.
call right now. He says that he's on call right now. So you want me to just go sit outside and wait for him to exit?
Well, can you have you been able to overhear anything that he's involved in right now? Is he talking about your story, or is it something else entirely?
We're too far away
I have
right
no
now.
idea. We're at my brother's room right now.
All right. Well, why don't we go back in there and get the rest of the story, and we can see if there's what else we can do to help out.
Are we allowed to eavesdrop?
Certainly would depend on the circumstances. If you are not violating anybody's immediate property rights, it would be allowable.
Okay,
But
because
not
the
necessarily
camera's
legal.
just pointed at my face right now, and as you can see, there's no records behind me. And
Mhm.
I will stand right here against this wall so that no records are shown. It's a face cam.
Yeah, it's not on the other side.
I'll cover it up. They're telling me that this behavior cannot exist.
This is their grounds.
They're saying that this is ridiculous. Please step out to the lobby. And this is the officer and the people.
All right.
This is what the world has come to. We are not allowed to record a police officer in a public place.
Well, it's certainly no surprise that as we know, hospitals and the medical industry as a whole has become a pawn of government. But yeah, of course, a hospital, because of the legal sensitivity, there's a special protected area, and there are definitely different legal considerations. But really appreciate you at least walking up to that line there and attempting to get some footage. But I'm not surprised in how this is unfolding.
Yeah.
If you could have a conversation with the officer right now, what would you tell him?
Basically that he's supposed to be enforcing the law, not breaking it. And considering he's one of the officers that arrested us yesterday and held a taser to us, that this is just wrong.
And what would you like to see, or what would you like to accomplish right now to get his name and his actions on the record and get some statement of acknowledgement from him, perhaps?
Yeah, like just the fact that he can understand that he's breaking the law right now. And if the rest of us did this, we would be arrested on the spot. No questions asked, nothing.
Well, I hope if we'll stay with you for a few minutes at least. I hope if you do get a chance to confront him, you can remain calm and be very clear about your objectives and very polite and say, officer, you've done something that I passionately disagree with, and we'd just simply like to make sure that it's clear for the record and get your statement as to the event. Of course. The sign we're seeing says, for security reasons, activities in this area may be recorded.
But we are not allowed to record.
Right.
That makes total sense, does it not?
Right.
But yeah, next Sunday I'll just keep the conversation going until this officer walks out here. Next Sunday we'll be holding another protest, same spot. This time we're not going to say anything to the officers. We're just going to prance around them and hold up our signs. I kind of made the mistake of just voicing my opinion to him.
You just said one cuss word.
Yeah, I said one cuss word. I said, because I held up a sign that says honk if you're against police corruption. And I held it up to the people and they started honking. And I was like, how does it make you feel that all these people are honking because they fucking hate you? And they arrested me for that. And they arrested my brother for videotaping me.
So
being arrested.
Sadly predictable. Well, I hope, is there, while we're live here and we're getting this out, is there anything you'd like to get out about yourself or contact information so people in your area can find you? If you're going to go back out, I hope you have more people with you this time. And you have people who are sort of separated from the protest activities who are there for recording purposes exclusively.
Right. Yeah, we have a Facebook page. It is facebook.com/Alabama Revolutionists. And the page is called Wiregrass Revolutionists. And we basically just protest about our government tyranny and the police corruption and just
another cop is here. They're gonna try and.
There's another cop here. I think that they're here for me. I'm not exactly sure. He's right there. I don't know if you can see him.
Barely. Can you give us that? Can you pan back to that shot, please? Okay, I see there's another SUV in that back corner. But
Would you like to approach him so that he can approach this officer about breaking the law, regardless of being on call? Well, that's for ambulance only.
It would certainly be appropriate for you to very politely register a complaint at least.
Okay. Well, he's walking up here now. I can't. He's the supervisor. Judging by his face, he doesn't seem like he's in too good of a mood. We'll see how this goes.
Well, thank you very much for bringing us this exciting live report. We are still broadcasting live, going along with the Adam versus the Man podcast today to bring you this story, and we're grateful to have such courageous activists in our audience.
I'm doing a live broadcast right now.
Okay.
And one of your police officers has his car running.
Okay.
And also, he's in an ambulance only sign.
Okay. This is private property.
Yeah.
Okay. And parking rules don't apply on private property unless it's handicapped.
So it doesn't apply to police officers?
No, what I'm saying is that we don't enforce. Look, what that's there for is for emergency vehicles.
So why don't you respect the private property of the hospital then?
So
it's not against the law, even if you were parked there.
I think I would.
Give you a ticket.
I think I would.
Okay.
So what kind of example are the police?
There's only there's two parking offenses that you can write a ticket for, because these is private property. Okay. The rules of the road apply to the road, like speeding, things like that. So the tickets that you can write referring to parking are fire lane. Yep. You can write somebody for parking on a fire lane, and a handicap. If you're parking in a handicap and you don't have a handicap thing, those are the two places that you can write tickets.
Okay, so I can go grab my car and I can pull it up over to that spot right there.
Write you a ticket.
And you can't write me a ticket.
That's correct.
That is all right. I will go do that.
But now keep in mind that the hospital administrative people, because this is their property, they can have your vehicle towed out of here.
But they can't have his?
They can if they want to, but I don't think they're going to.
Now, what about his vehicle running? Don't taxpayers pay for that?
The reason why his vehicle's running is because the cameras that we have that have audio, they don't work if you turn it off. He's in here on a call, he's dealing with the public.
That's a camera too?
No, this is the audio part of the camera. The camera's in the car. But they don't work. If they turn the car off, then this wouldn't be recording. So you see, mine's running too, so my interaction with you is being tape recorded.
Okay.
But if I turned off my car, after about 2 minutes, that camera shuts down automatically so it doesn't run the battery.
Wouldn't you want to come up with a more, reasonable way that would cause less money to be taken from us?
If you know any technology that'll run a camera, beyond
batteries?
I'm sure there are. This is the age of technology.
Okay, yeah. Well, it runs off the car battery, okay? That's the most economical way to run a camera in a vehicle.
Right.
Run off the car battery. So if I turn the car off, it shuts itself off after a couple minutes, because like most things do in a car. Because if you leave them on, guess what happens?
Battery dies.
Battery goes dead. You know how much battery costs?
No idea.
A lot more than the gas that's going to cost for this thing to idle for the next 20 minutes or however long this costs here.
I have a dash cam in my car and it doesn't kill the battery like that.
Say it again, Adam.
I have a dash cam in my car that doesn't drain a car battery. But that aside, would you go ahead and register your complaint about the officer?
Okay, I understand, but this is a special kind of dash cam.
It's a special kind.
It is. It's wireless. It's made for police officers. We don't have access to it, so we can't manipulate it because it's evidence. Is he able to rewind his and take it out and things like that?
Are you able to rewind yours and take it out?
Yes, I can. It all stores to a memory card. It's very convenient.
It all stores to a memory card.
Okay, see, ours don't do that. You know why?
Because they transmit.
Because I could go destroy my memory card if there's something on there I don't like. You know, like I did something to you and I go, oh, they're going to go and complain.
Yes, sir.
I go get it. Let me go manipulate it now so that I don't get complained on, or there's no evidence of me being complained.
Here, let me step out of the way so I'm not filming these people.
Well, isn't this relevant?
This dash cam costs $5,000. $5,000.
Don't you think with that kind of money that we pay for, you guys would come up with a little better way of
we don't design it.
I understand.
The police departments don't design it.
It's not your guys' money, though.
Let me promise you this, that the chief of police and the mayor of this town would love if you guys go start a company and sell them to us for $3,000 that has the same features, okay? Or if you want to point us in a direction to a company that builds this type of a camera system for police cars that does what this camera, that it's less than $5,000, I can promise you. And let me explain something to you. When you spend that kind of money, there's a law that obligates cities and police departments to go to the lowest bid. You understand that, right?
Yeah.
So if there was a cheaper one that has these functions, we can't go buy like the private, the thing that your buddy's talking about on there. We can't go buy that, because if we go buy that, then when we get in court, people say we manipulate it. So it has to have certain standards.
Gotcha.
So those certain standards are only made by a few companies. Maybe it's more than 3, but there's only a very certain amount of companies that'll make those kind of cameras, because there's not a big market for it. They don't sell it to just everybody. They sell them to police departments. So as you know, when you have something that's specially made for a small segment of the public, what happens to the price? It goes up. You can sell it to everybody, like iPhones. If you can sell them to everybody, you can lower the prices. Not that iPhones are cheap, but you can lower the prices because mass produced, you sell a bunch of them, the price comes down. When you make a specialized piece of equipment and you only sell it to a very small amount of people, the price is usually higher.
Right.
Because it takes more money to produce it, because they don't sell large quantities of it. That's my theory. I'm no economist. That's my theory on why they cost so much. But that's out of our control. It's out of our control. We put out for the lowest bidder. The city takes it the lowest bidder. I can promise you, man. You know, the chief of police has a budget. If he could save money on cameras so that he could buy something else that we need, he would.
Yeah, but are there no cameras in here that have audio?
Yeah, but we have to have it for us. You know why? The same reason you're doing that right there.
For accountability.
Exactly.
But
Every
if I can ask you a question,
Sure.
You hear about that protest yesterday?
I did.
What do you think about that?
I can't really comment on that because, you know, I can't. We have people at the police department that comment about, you know, public information officers, the chief of police that comes out of the
But I'm one of the people that was arrested.
I understand.
And I asked for information.
I understand. It depends on what you ask. I mean, I can't tell you what happened up there.
Okay.
I mean, you know
what did I say that got us arrested?
I can't. I wasn't there for that part. Wasn't there for that part. Wasn't there when you got arrested. Came there shortly after. You're asking me to refer to paperwork, to ongoing investigation.
All right. Well, since you can't answer any of that,
Really
what do you think of one of your fellow officers almost running over my friend right here?
Again, I wasn't there. I didn't witness any of that.
I mean, you can't say what you think about that.
You're asking me to give you my opinion on something that
You don't think that's unjust?
Hear me out.
I'm
Hear my
hearing
answer.
you. I'm hearing you.
You're asking me to give my opinion on something that I didn't observe, okay? So you're asking me to speculate on a hypothetical.
Hypothetical. Give me a hypothetical answer.
No. That's what I'm telling you. You're asking me to do that. I'm not going to speculate. If you want me to say, do I expect people to, including police officers, to drive safely with the public's regard, safety in mind? Of course I do. If you're asking me to comment on what happened yesterday on a specific incident that I'm not privy to, I can't do that. I apologize. I can't do that.
How would you go about filing
do.
police reports for specific officers who need?
You want to file a complaint?
You still there, Adam?
You need to
Yes,
go
I
see
am. It's fascinating.
Control Division.
Perhaps you should try just politely registering your complaint about those specific officers and relate the incident to this gentleman.
Well, we were actually planning to go to Daleville to file the complaints, which is the town that. Oh, it has to be from
It
your.
doesn't have to. You can go to Daleville if you like. I'm not going to tell you where you can't go.
I mean, but what did you mean by
If
it's not
you
going to
want
work that way?
If you're wanting to file a complaint against these police officers, you go see the patrol division captain here in Enterprise.
Yes, sir.
That's where you go.
Where is that at?
That's at the police department.
Okay.
His name is Captain Darby. Okay, you go to him and you tell him that you'd like to file a complaint against whatever happened to you in this arrest, and he's the one that handles it.
Okay.
Could you ask this gentleman if this is what happened, what does he think would be appropriate sanctions for those officers, or what would he do in that situation?
Okay, so
I'm not going to speculate or
He
comment.
said-
I'm not going to comment on hypothetical situations. Sorry.
it's not
It's not my
hypothetical though.
job.
It's what happened.
I don't know. That's what you say happened. I wasn't there.
It's on your guys' dash cams. It's on the news.
Understand that.
You
See,
can ask that.
you
Can
refer-
ask
you-
that
you-
officer?
Yeah, can you
No,
ask
no, no,
him?
no, no, no. Listen,
He was the
listen
one
what
that
you don't understand.
held a taser to me
No,
for
what you don't
peacefully
understand, if you wanna
protesting.
this is how it works. You want to file a complaint.
I got that.
These are
I understand
These
that.
are the people that you ask those questions
Now,
to.
what
You don't
about
ask me.
officers?
I can't ask the
Don't
sergeant
ask me.
questions.
You can ask me the questions, but again, I'm not going to speculate on anything that I'm not privy to. Okay, that I haven't seen personally.
Is that other officer the one from the incident?
The one that's
Yes.
wearing the taser, can you get him over here?
No.
Officer, officer,
He's not going to talk to you. He's not going to talk to
he's
you.
on the call right now.
I'm his supervisor.
Yeah, I don't see. Oh, I think he's talking to the people up at those handicap signs. I'm not too sure though.
Let me tell you this, leave him alone while he's out here doing his job.
I got you.
Because if you interfere with that.
Well, I did not know that he was
breaking the
still
law.
on call.
Okay, I'm here to talk with you.
I understand. I did not know he was still on
Fair
call,
enough,
and I was
fair
going to
enough. When he
question
gets done
him.
with the call,
Yes, sir.
he's not gonna sit down for any interview with you or anything like that, okay? You know, that's not the way it works. I'm here because I'm the supervisor. If you don't like what I say, then you go to the next step, which is the person I'm pointing you to. If you don't like your results from there, then you go to the next step, okay? If you don't like the results you get out of the police department, you go outside of the police department, okay? And to do that, you need to go speak to an attorney. It doesn't have anything to do with us, okay?
Yes, sir.
That's your chain to complain. And you don't have to do the things I'm telling you to do. Those are offered there. Those are there for you to utilize. If you choose not to, then that's that. You want to just go see an attorney, then you go see an attorney.
Well, I mean, why couldn't that officer have parked in that empty parking spot right about here? Because that car did not just leave. That parking spot has been empty this whole time.
Even though that says ambulance parking,
Have these people coming out here to confront us?
these are probably administrators from the hospital.
Oh, we got
wanna know-
administrators.
They want to know why our police car is parked over there in the ambulance parking.
Here, let me get a better view.
And I told them this is private property, and that even though it says ambulance parking, I'm pretty sure that.
Please keep the camera vertical or your phone vertical there.
Parking
Thank
there
you.
because it's an emergency
Not
vehicle.
unless it takes a long time and then.
Or of course, if it blocks an ambulance that needs to park there because the ambulance comes first, as we know.
That's fine.
So because this is private property, they can decide who parks anywhere
And we
in
can
that
decide who
respect.
can be here.
Because just like you could if this was your yard.
Yep.
And if I came up and said, how come you're letting your buddy park in the driveway? It's your business, isn't it?
I mean, so the cop's your guys' buddy and we're
No,
not?
It has nothing to do with buddy.
You just said it
This is a
was.
specially designated place for emergency vehicles and they allow us to park there.
So you just
Simple
used a
as that.
hypothetical statement, but you wouldn't answer a hypothetical question. Thank you for your time, officer.
Okay, no problem.
Let me put
Thank
this
you.
right on. We want your name.
No, thank you. I don't give names.
Oh, then we won't. You need to leave.
Then we
Good
should
day.
leave this private property.
I got you. Have a good day.
You need to leave the property.
We understand that. Y'all have a good day. All right, so I have to leave the property, and my brother is in the hospital right now. So yeah, he's in emergency care. So I'm just gonna take his phone
Well, I hope we'll find
because
it.
we would
soon
not give
after.
names.
But I gotta commend you for that that conversation you just had, for keeping your cool and for maintaining a professional demeanor. But it seems like this supervisor is kind of a master of diversion and allowed you to turn the conversation to parking and dash cams instead of talking about the brutality that
Right.
you experienced yesterday and the violation there. Now we know that he's not going to say, oh, well, if the officers did that, they should be punished, because he's going to say, well, if the officers did that, they should get paid administrative leave or something like that. But I think there is a very important takeaway that you've demonstrated in this incident, which is that when you do have a problem with a government agent, what do? It's diversion. There's like, well, there's a means of accountability for that. You can complain here and complain there, or see a lawyer, or go to the court, or yada yada.
It won't happen.
Right, but
Or
if
it
it
won't
was
do it.
exactly, and because they know that that's a rabbit hole that you're never going to escape from. But if it was any kind of private institution, any kind of service provider, and any employee of that group wanted to keep their job, if they had a customer complaining about something, they would be eager to take that complaint and to pass it on and to resolve the issue or the dissatisfaction. But because police have no accountability, there's no incentive for them to do that. I see you have the signs in question here in the back seat. Is that right?
Yeah.
Beautiful.
This is from a Navy veteran, Clinton,
The one that you talked to.
the one that you talked
Yep.
to. This is for Stop the Militarized Police. This is No More Drone Strikes. That's our Facebook page. This was Learn Your Rights, Express Them. This one is Patriots Protest, Speak Out. This other one is You are 8 times more likely to die by a cop than a terrorist.
Well, sounds like you guys
silence
are...
is a problem.
Sounds like you are quite the threats to civilized society, and gentlemen, I definitely appreciate you calling in and spreading some civility. This was a wonderful call. Is there anything again? If there's anything you can say for people to find you or to help out in your area and to be there for your next protest, at least with cameras, how can they find you?
We will be at the 84 and Bull Weevil Circle intersection in Enterprise, Alabama on I can't think
Sunday?
of what next Sunday's
Easter?
date is.
The 20th?
Yeah, it'll be Easter.
Yeah, Easter
420.
Sunday, the 20th, 420.
Yeah,
420.
we will be there protesting again about police corruption, and we appreciate anybody to come.
Awesome.
Buddy.
And keep accountability.
Well, best of luck, gentlemen. I hope you call back in the show maybe Thursday or Friday this week and get some more people out for you. So thanks so much for joining us. Any final thoughts?
No, just keep making YouTube videos.
Will do. Have a great day, gentlemen. Amazing. Bringing you live police confrontations here at adamversustheman.com/live. We are 25 minutes over, so that is definitely all the time we have for today. Thank you so much for joining us. And wow, I don't. How can we ever top that? Like, you think we could do that every day and get somebody? I mean, it's amazing. You know, I'm so glad we now have people able to tune into the live show on mobile devices. So for those of you that are listening, thinking you can only do it from your computer, no, you can hear the show on your phone as well. And you can actually, if you have a good enough connection, Skype in from your phone, as we just saw. That was really exciting. These gentlemen confronting police in their hometown after a brutality incident, kind of getting a blow off. Surprising situation, or unsurprising result. They're talking to the supervisor, but what an amazing audience we have at Adam versus the Man, and just it's so cool to be able to take all of this technology and connectedness and synthesize it into a show like this to bring it to you. I hope you're entertained, especially now if you're still listening late. It's been a great show, and remember this Sunday we're going to be at the beach at 3:30 at Santa Monica Pier. If you want to join us as an intern, email adam@adamversustheman.com, or to donate or to sponsor, please help us out. adamversustheman.com/invest. How many IRS agents does it take to screw in a light bulb? Only one, but it gets screwed really, really hard. Cool, huh? Like it was a little late. You're like telling me, like, come on.
Well, you would bring to that. I got the email while you were on there, and the guy was like, I think twat was the word you were looking for, Adam, and I'm like,
damn it! Wait, neither of you thought of it either.
No, I know.
Oh yeah.